August. I know we do the 5th.
No, according to
19th?
the latest, it looked like we were doing the 12th.
And eventually,
Oh, okay.
that's to the water supply.
Recording in progress.
So it's just something to just stash away.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Yarmouth Select Board meeting of July 22nd, 2025. Let's please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the first item on our agenda for this evening is announcements. Liz, do you have any announcements?
No, I do not.
Okay, Joyce?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
I'm good.
Mark?
One brief announcement that Debbie Clark is here, and it's great to see you.
She is out of the hospital and better, so we like that. We like that.
Well, we all wish you get well soon, and you did.
My only announcement is that this board met a week ago Saturday and had our goal-setting meeting, which was very productive. We had Warren Rutherford as our, I would say, I wouldn't call him mediator, but our facilitator. Thank you, Mark. And yes, so that was a very productive meeting, and from that, our town administrator will be preparing a framework on how we move forward with achieving those goals for the year. So we're looking forward to that, and we thank you, Bob. We know that's a lot on your plate, and everything we do is all on you, so it can be overwhelming sometimes in those meetings. You look at his face, and he's like, but he always gets it done. So it was great. Yep. That's my only announcement. So we will move to public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address the board this evening? Okay.
I might, if I may, will we be permitting comments when we have the presentation from the RAC committee on the sewering?
I saw your email about that. I'm surprised there's nobody here to even speak to that, so I'm not sure it's going to be.
But I don't know.
Typically, when that kind of thing happens and it's not a public hearing, I leave it to the board to decide how they want to handle it. Usually it's an either or, so we're not duplicating the efforts, but in this case, we don't have anybody in public, so we'll address that, and we'll see if anybody in the board here wants to take comment at that point in time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nobody from the public? Okay. Moving on to our next item. Bob, can I have the red folder, please?
Certainly, yeah.
Thank you. I'm not sure if any of these are, our employees are planning to attend. I don't see Jane.
No, Jane and Susan both can't make it, but
Okay.
we'd
Well,
like to make a couple of words for both of them. And I know Anne Marie Ellis is here, our treasurer collector.
Okay, I'm going to read the citations into the record and recognize them for their time, and then you can make your comments. So the first one is official certificate or citation for Susan E. Kerr on her retirement as administrative assistant effective June 20th, 2025, and for her dedicated service to the town of Yarmouth. And be it further known that the town of Yarmouth extends its sincere thanks and appreciation for her tireless service in the Yarmouth Collector's Treasurer's Office. This citation has been approved by the Yarmouth Select Board on this 22nd day of July in the year of our Lord, 2025, signed on behalf of the board. Thank you, Susan. Does anybody on the board want to say anything? Okay.
Congratulations.
All right, and next we have an official citation for our library director, Jane Kane. Be it known that the town of Yarmouth hereby recognizes Jane N. Kane on her retirement as Director of Libraries effective July 18th, 2025, and for her dedicated service to the town of Yarmouth. And be it further known that the town of Yarmouth extends its sincere thanks and appreciation for 11 years of tireless service in the Yarmouth Library Division. This citation has been approved by the Yarmouth Select Board on this 22nd day of July in the year of our Lord 2025, also signed on behalf of the board. So thank you very much, Jane, for your
Chair, I would like to say a word or two about Jane, having worked with her on the Library Planning Committee. Jane is a very well-loved and well-respected individual in the town of Yarmouth, and I was privileged to work with her on the Library Planning Committee. And I'm sort of sad to understand that she's retiring, because I think it was partially through her consistent efforts that we may be getting a grant for a library in the near future. So thank you, Jane Kane.
certainly a culmination of years of hard work to get where we are.
I'd like to say that if we could all cast our minds back to that awful time of COVID, Jane was my lifeline. Jane was the one that made sure I got some books to take me through all of that time. I couldn't believe that I wasn't going to be able to get to my beautiful books, and Jane made sure that happened, not only for me, but of course for the entire community. It was like one of those, I'm kind of still have a lifeline out there. Somebody still knows I'm around and is helping to make sure that I stay very occupied with my time. Jane, I wish you all the best in your retirement, but you will be missed greatly.
Thank you. Mark, you have anything?
I think we're all going to miss Jane because, just about everybody here on this board, and it seems like almost everybody in the community has used the library at one time or another. And Jane has been an incredible professional in terms of how she's approached the job. But as you said, she's just been wonderful to work with, and she's been a huge asset for the town. We're going to miss her, and I know I'm going to miss her. I do my office hours at the library. They've taken very, very good care of me over there, and it's going to be strange just not going to the library and just not seeing her there. And so I wish her nothing but the best. I hope she's not a stranger. I hope she's talked about continuing to be a presence on the library committee, the building committee now, and I hope that she's able to continue to do that. I know she has other things that she has to take care of, but I really think the world of her. She's been a wonderful ambassador for the town and an incredible librarian for the people of Yarmouth. So I wish her nothing but the best.
Thank you, Mark. Joyce?
Okay, I'd just like to say that I think, Mike? Mike? Sorry.
I just wanted to affirm what everyone has said. Like Liz, I was on the earlier library planning committee, and she was wonderful to work with, and she was such a wonderful, dedicated person to the library, the town, and I just wanted to say congratulate her on this exciting time.
Thank you, Deirdre. Well, I just wanted to say, for those of you, and I know I'm among them, who will miss Jane, all you have to do is look for a great big palace of a building, which may or may not be the new library, because the last time I saw her was at the Mini Renaissance Fair, and she had a crown. So she's doing well.
Thank you, Joyce. Bob?
Yes, and thank you very much. I would like to congratulate Jane on her retirement. She spent over 12 and a half years with the town of Yarmouth as our library director, and she did bring a great deal to our community. She was very highly qualified. She came to us with a master's degree in library and information science, and she had also served as library director in 2 other communities before she came here. And what a lot of people don't know is that she started her career with Fidelity Investments, which goes to show how good she was, on putting all those budgets together over the years. But while she was here, she also received, her Suffolk certificate She's a program recipient there in municipal management, so she was always trying to get additional professional development. But there's a few of her accomplishments that I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what she left with our community. I think that one of her greatest accomplishments and one she was most proud of was the way she helped to shape and create a first-class library staff in our town libraries. And she worked very hard to mentor the people in the library, and she created a very cohesive team. And anyone who's a regular library user, I think that that's one of the key characteristics of our library. That is the first thing that you notice, and she was very proud of that. So thank you, Jane, for your work with our staff. She also worked very hard, and this was very important to her, to return our town libraries to state certified status after a hiatus that we went through with some difficult budget times. I know before that she got here, and she worked very hard, and she was successful. And I remember when I first got here, it was one of the first things she told me about, that she didn't want me to follow up her state certification on the library. And, I'm happy to report we did not. And, there's all the calculations that you have to run throughout the budget. And so we remain fully certified as a library. But I think most of all, and this starts with Jane's interview when she came here. Her entire career was devoted to leading the town's efforts to consider modernization of the current libraries, and she fought tirelessly throughout her entire career here to both modernize the staff and to modernize the town's libraries. And as she left us, we have the certified library, a highly qualified staff of extremely motivated staff members, and we have been successful in our community being awarded the feasibility study grant from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners to move forward with the library modernization project, and we hope that turns into a construction grant as well. So we're very much in her debt, and like a lot of our retirees, she wanted to be here, but the first thing they do when they leave is to plan a trip. And so she's out of town right now, but thank you very much, Jane. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Bob. Very well said. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our 6:35 item. We're a little bit early, but we have Jessica Simmons here, which is the Vice Chair of the Disabilities Commission, that is going to speak to the Evelyn Bale Impact Award. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Select Board and community members. My name is Jessica Simmons, and tonight I represent the Yarmouth Commission on Disability in presenting the Evelyn Beale Impact Award. The Evelyn M. Beale Impact Award was created this year not only to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Yarmouth Commission on Disability's relaunch, but also to honor the founder whom the award is named after. This award was created to recognize an individual, group, or business that has made an exemplary and definitive impact in support of Yarmouth disabled community, be it through volunteerism, direct support, and caregiving, advocacy, education. Of the nominations received, we selected one, Patricia Watson, as the inaugural recipient of the Evelyn M. Beale Impact Award. Mrs. Watson worked in the DY school system for over 30 years, first as a special education assistant before becoming a physical education teacher. She involved special needs students in her PE lessons, believing in inclusion and participation for all. Working closely with special education teachers, she developed strategies to help students be their best and create opportunities for students in the community events she led. Patricia's accomplishments include working as a tutor for the district's extended school year program for special education students, running the Body Walk program through Cape Cod Collaborative, implementing the Jump Rope for Heart program to raise funds for the American Heart Association, and offered CPR trainings for her school to all interested staff. She would donate sneakers and clothing items to students in need, volunteered with Daydream on Cape Cod, a camp for the medically fragile operating at a Nickerson State Park, created, organized, and ran a triathlon event to raise money for the camp, raising over $45,000 during that time the event was held. Always holding a special place in her heart for the special education students and the disabled community, Patricia Watson was a leader, both in her community and within the school district. A tireless advocate for inclusion and participation for all abilities, and a selfless giver of her time and resources. She is loved and respected by all who are fortunate enough to have known or worked with her. Patricia Watson sadly passed away in July of 2024 after losing her battle with cancer. However, her work, her passion, her infectious personality, her impact continue to influence others, and her legacy is carried in the hearts and minds of her friends and family, as well as her students. And now the Yarmouth Commission on Disability is honored and privileged to recognize her legacy here tonight with the presentation of the Evelyn M. Beal Impact Award to Mrs. Patricia Watson. Here to accept the award on behalf of Mrs. Watson is her husband, Bob Watson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica, for those words, and thank you, Sarah, for capturing that. I'm going to read a proclamation from the Select Board. Proclamation states, whereas Patricia Watson has dedicated countless hours in unwavering commitment to advocate for and improve the lives of individuals with disabilities in our community. And whereas Mrs. Watson's efforts have resulted in improvements in accessibility, inclusion, and opportunity for the disabled population, reflecting a profound dedication to fostering a truly equitable and welcoming community for all, but particularly students. And whereas Mrs. Watson embodied the spirit of compassion, advocacy, and positive change, aspiring others to champion the rights and needs of individuals with disabilities. And whereas the recognition of such dedication encourages further advocacy and reinforces the importance of disability inclusion as a core community value. And now therefore be it proclaimed that the town of Yarmouth on this 22nd day of July, 2025, recognizes and celebrates Patricia Watson for her outstanding contributions and profound impact on the disabled population of Yarmouth. And be it further proclaimed that all citizens of Yarmouth are encouraged to join in acknowledging and appreciating Mrs. Watson's invaluable legacy and to support the ongoing efforts to create more inclusive, accessible, and supportive environment for individuals with disabilities in the community. Signed on the 22nd day of July by all of the members of the Yarmouth Select Board. Thank you very much. Thank you. Pass it down. That's on behalf. We need more Mrs. Watsons, and it's always unfortunate that we recognize them after their passing. It's, it would be nice to, she had been here to see it, although she's here with us, so. Okay. Thank you very much for your words, Jessica, and for the Disability Commission's reinvigorating its mission that is so important in our community. So it's very much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move along now to our 7 p.m. item. I understand there's some...
6:45, or are you skipping?
Oh, I'm not skipping it. I checked it off already.
Well, then we're
I
done.
checked it off. No, we're done. No. Okay. So next at 6:45, we have the change of officers, directors, and corporate structure by Ryan Family Amusement. I understand there's somebody on Zoom joining us to represent Ryan Family Amusement on this. This is a basically a housekeeping amendment that is required by the ABCC. The ABCC has been through the application as it's been presented to us, and it's basically a housekeeping item. Can you please bring Jeffrey Hernandez in?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jeffrey. Thank you very much. If you would like to introduce yourself for the board and just briefly speak about some of the information that's been provided to us here tonight and the request.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, first of all. So, not too long, first of all, Jeff Hernandez, one of the attorneys on behalf of Ryan Family Amusements. So, not too long ago, we were in front of the board on our application for change in corporate structure, which you all approved. Only after the fact did the ABCC tell us that they preferred a different application, the application that is in front of you all today. It is substantively the same application that you all approved, just by a different name. There are no new owners, same individuals are involved, just different titles given because the corporation is now an LLC.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hernandez from the
No,
board?
I found it all to be in order.
It's a well-established business. I think we have confidence in it.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, I don't believe this is a public hearing. It's more of information. There's nothing.
Correct. It's not a public hearing, but it does require a vote of the board.
Right, okay.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the change,
Is there a
the application for multiple amendments.
Second?
Is there any discussion on the motion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck. Okay, next, at 7 PM, we also have, this is a request, it's not, it's also not a public hearing, so to speak. It's a request for a special alcohol and special entertainment license, a one-day event for Great Island Homeowners Association. I'm not sure if anybody from Great Island Homeowners Association is with us this evening. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. So, and that doesn't happen often enough.
Won't last.
So, does anybody have any questions that we need to wait for them to present? Or how does the board feel about moving forward with this application?
I feel fine with it for one.
Okay,
Yeah.
everybody okay with
Private
it?
event.
It's offshore.
Okay with it.
Do we have a motion on the application?
Move to approve the request for special alcohol and special entertainment license for the Great Island Homeowners Association at Beach Club.
Second?
Did someone just
Yeah,
come
it was,
on?
Mr. Hernandez. He's moved out now. He's muted, I believe, but I don't believe there's anybody here looking to come in. Okay, is there any discussion on that? We have a motion and a second. Anybody who has any comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we have the request for a special entertainment license for the second summer cycle event, which will be held September 13th and 14th at Smuggler's Beach. Is there somebody here that, we're ahead of schedule? Does anybody have any comments? Should we hold until we have somebody here, or are we okay with the application that's been presented?
Seems non-controversial.
Okay, good.
Well, I do want to say that there's two parts to the application. That the first part is presented this evening in the form of the application for a special entertainment license. And there's also behind that a correspondence dated July 17, 2025. And we've asked the applicant to bifurcate the process due to the fact that there is a policy that does not allow alcohol consumption on the town's beaches. And I know at certain points in the past for very special events, the board has decided that, the event was a highly managed and professional event. And I think the chamber may have been involved. That doesn't happen often. And so the applicant has requested the ability to submit a one-day beer and malt license for an area in the parking lot that would be managed. And what we've requested, because we do have that policy, is a process where that we would approve the special entertainment license. We've had information on this for quite some time. We just found out recently about the proposed beer and wine. And if the select board would allow, because it is town property, an application for a wine and malt one day to supplement this event. The organizers have sort of had that in their planning all along, and they would request the opportunity to do that, which would be at your next meeting. But I felt it needed the approval of the board because you do have a policy if they were going to seek the wine and malt.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I have looked at the policy, actually, and I think the policy probably needs to be relooked at because I think the policy is more for people carrying, individual people carrying beer or wine or any type of alcohol in and out of the beach. But we have done events like this that are sanctioned and insured, licensed events several times at the beach. I'm personally comfortable with that, but I do think that we should help staff by maybe clarifying the policy.
That's a good point.
So that way you're not in a predicament in the future. We have never, I know of probably 3 or 4 times that we've done some really nice events at the beach with alcohol. And I'm comfortable with it, going through the licensing process and making sure that we have tips training ensured, that we know who's being served and things like that. I think it's, in my mind, it's clearly different than what I think the intent of our alcohol on the beach policy is, but that's just me. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I would just point out, I'm fully in support of it because I think these are really important events for our visitors and our residents, for that matter. So I'm fully in support of it, including the alcohol. I would want to make sure that the recycling of whatever containers are provided is provided, the ability to recycle, which I believe would be in keeping with the kind of event that the chamber is behind, is sponsoring. So I'm for it. Yep, it'll be a great event.
Okay, so
So do we need 2 separate motions
I
then?
don't think tonight we're going to act upon the special license, and I
Okay,
think
we're going to wait for,
if I'm hearing
second part.
correctly from the board and it's okay, we're going to encourage them to bring that back to us next week for approval
Sounds
and
good.
consideration, and at the same time, ask staff to maybe clarify our policy on alcohol on the beach. If
Madam
that's-
Chair, I make a motion that we approve the special entertainment license for second summer cycle for September 13th and 14th at Smuggler's Beach.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so we'll look forward to that again on our next agenda. Our 7:30 item is our committee policy. Joyce?
Okay, well, you've seen examples of what I've been doing for the policy. So I'm counting on you to kind of have a knowledge of those. But that is what I thought might be a wording that might explain what I'm doing and maybe make it seem acceptable to chairs perhaps in the future, or they may have their own ideas. I picture this as sort of an electronic thing that would get changed. I'd point out that it's not replacing the larger Town of Yarmouth board committee and commission handbook. It's just substituting the little part about the application and the screening.
Okay, I don't have that. I know you emailed it to us, but it's not in our, oh, maybe it's over here. I don't have the actual details of it.
I have it here, I can make copies if.
Is it in anybody else's packet?
It was in the
I'm
electronic.
not seeing it. I
Is
asked
that
for a whole
why
packet.
this was amended? Because it is in this, in the download.
Oh, no, I'm not looking at the electronic version. I'm looking at the physical one. So is Joyce. So
should
it
be in
just
there,
got
too.
missed
Yeah.
from the physical one, but it's in public, so. And she did email it to us in advance. I just can't get on my email. Okay.
Well, I'm okay if you want to discuss it now, or if you want to let it go to the very next meeting when everybody has paper card copy in front of them, that's fine.
I don't, I can, I think, it's on the agenda to discuss tonight. I know what you're getting to. I still have a little bit of hesitation on, I'm just stuck. I can't help it, on the arbitrary nature of a potential appointment. And I know how you feel strongly about having that freedom, and you've.
Well, I feel strongly about not having the person reduced to some numbers.
Right, I understand that, but unfortunately, without that, there's no quantitative data that, it's, to me, I don't know, I feel like it's arbitrary, and I could be wrong. But this is, like, for the appointments that's on tonight, you met with, like, for the recreation, for instance, you met with the recreation chair?
Talk to, yeah.
Oh, so you didn't interview together? See, this is where I think it's like,
But isn't that a reappointment?
no,
No, that one is,
no, so this is where I
I'm
get.
sorry,
into-
this one didn't come to me then. I didn't get anything for a new appointment.
Okay, all right.
I
We have
I don't
a-
understand
I'm
that.
just taking, for instance, we have an appointment to the Recreation, and please, for the public's sake, it has nothing to do with this particular individual. We're talking about just kind of process here. There are new appointments, and I think it's extremely important that the interview process happens with members of the committee, especially if we're not gonna use a paper form, which I can understand, but having no,
Oh, this one, that was given to me as a reappointment, the Harrison one?
yeah, it's.
Or Harrison and
it's a new-
Sorensen
it's a
were
new
both-
appointment.
Okay.
So did these other appointments, the Energy Committee, was that an interview that took place with the chair of the Energy Committee, or was it just
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Okay. So, I don't know.
but is that just, because I'll tell you, I think it looks great. And thank you, Joyce, for the hard work of doing it and taking on the chore. But I mean, I have the opposing concern about reducing people to numbers. I think that also, not that they have to, the chair, I don't think, has to actually be present for the interview process either. If the chair of, I feel it's very important that the chair concur with the appointment. And a lot of times I found when I was appointment chair that because of the busyness of all of our schedules, we never could get a time when everyone could get together at that particular point. And the chair would say to me, oh, well, they came to some of our meetings and I feel really comfortable with them, so go ahead and if you're okay with it too. Because the other thing is, in the past, we used to have numerous applications for different positions. But what we're finding now
And that's
is-
where I'm coming from, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I'm stuck on
And
it.
from where we are now, it's like almost pulling teeth sometimes to get applications, to get people to apply for these different committees. So I just don't have a problem with the whole numerical thing.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, again, I've been around long enough to know that there's personalities that get involved, and there are, sometimes this board is interested in changing direction of a particular board and, makes appointments. I just want to make sure that it's concurred with the committee. We used to do full interviews with committees. I have,
Oh, you mean with the whole committee?
did, the planning board used to.
How would you ever schedule that?
They
Well,
come
then
into a regular scheduled meeting, that's how it
Now,
always.
I see.
Orleans Highway will want that, and that.
But a lot of them
have
do.
it.
A lot of them do, though.
But that needs
we
to be
can't
changed.
pick and
They just need to
Why are we
have it
picking and choosing?
advance notice and post it then.
That's how it has always been. The planning board had it, the recreation commission used to have the whole board would interview these people.
We've
And-
never had that on Energy Committee, ever, and I was on it for 11 years.
Just different.
It's different, but that's what I'm used to, so I,
Wasn't on recreation either. So, I mean, it happens, in later years, in previous years it was with recreation. But I just, because of the difficulty of getting people together and a lot of times, I would say probably 9.9 out of 10, there's only one applicant that's come in for that position. I just don't think we need to put another hurdle in place of making a person have to wait a longer period of time once they've volunteered to be on a committee, to have to go, to wait until they get through the whole process to be able to do it, when there's an easier, simpler way to do it.
So you're saying don't expect the committee chair to be there?
I'm saying that we should expect the committee chair approval, but if you have a committee chair that says to you, I can't attend that interview, but I've reviewed all of the data and I've had all of my questions answered and I don't have any further, and go ahead. I don't think we should be stopping it. And I'll give you an example. The library building committee that we have right now, one of our applicants there ended up having to wait a whole extra month to be able to come forward, and that was just because of the timing of select board meetings. So that and he was, I felt for him. I felt it was kind of frustrating that he had to wait a whole month to be able to get into the process. And if we're adding in that you have to do this step before you get to the select board, it could potentially take even longer.
What I've done to make it easier for appointments is to just tell Pam she can schedule any time between 2 and 5 on Tuesdays, all Tuesdays, not just the ones we meet. And usually that gets people in. Occasionally we've had to do like a Wednesday morning or something. I think that the 3-way interview is the best. It's great to have the town staff member who's a rep to that committee. It's great to have the chair. And, if it's necessary, when a chairperson is working or whatever, I'd be willing to have the interview at like 7:30 in the morning. But I think it's important to have a conversation that isn't just a kind of up or down thing. You explore the person. I'll never be somebody who'll say, we've got 6 of these and we've got 6 openings. I want to get the best opening for that person, for that person's skills, even if it means waiting a month. And I want to go out with committees that need help in certain areas and go help them by suggesting where they might find people. It's just important, I think, that the applicants have a quality experience, because for many people, that's their first experience of the town.
I don't disagree with that, but I personally don't feel that any of the times we did a rating system that they didn't. So that's just, we just differ on that.
Okay.
But again, I'm coming at it with, you have multiple candidates, right? So when you have one, obviously, you have one. There's no thing. But if you have 3, then what are you using to say it's just, I guess it's your opinions.
I could give an example, but I have to be careful, so that I don't give away the committee. But a regulatory committee appointed by the select board at one point had an opening, and it had an opening, and there were 2 applicants who asked to be on that committee. One of whom had been on that kind of committee before and had a lot of government experience at the municipal level in a different town. The other person who applied had shouted at the staff representative to that committee and at the chair of that committee in the past. So where do you go with that?
No, obviously that's not a difficult choice. However, that's not always going to be the case.
It was tempting though, wouldn't that be interesting?
I'm just saying to you on the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, you have your basis of your decision, right? So you have 2 really good qualified people and somebody's upset they didn't get it. How do you quantify to that person? Somebody's going to get hurt, whether you writing it down or not. It's a tough process, right? It's just like an election. Somebody wins, somebody loses. It's tough. You put yourself out there. It's the same thing for applicants. But if you have 2 really qualified people, how are you going to? What do you say to the other person?
Well, right from the beginning, I've been asking them, what things interest them. So, for example, there's a person, do you remember the person who gave the presentation for the library siting? Yep, okay, isn't he wonderful? And from South Yarmouth, I might add, Long Pond Drive. But he came in and he was wonderful. He was one of the few people at the morning part of the attempted volunteer fair, which went out at the cost of 6 muffins per person. So I'm not saying that was the way I would ever do it again. But he wants one of 3 committees as a really best match for what he likes. He's a numbers guy. So he's most interested in planning board, he's interested in FinCom, and he's interested in assessing. So I've gotten him to talk to the chairs of two of those boards, and also he's talked to some staff members to get an idea of kind of what's done by the professional staff, what's done by the committee. And there just were no openings. Those are high prestige committees. You know, it's not easy to get on those. But we found him a happy landing where he could do some planning and budgets and things like that with the library building committee. And we, in figuring that that would be something that might be good for him, and my calling him and asking, well, what would you think of this? It turned out that he's actually a member of the South Yarmouth, an officer of the South Yarmouth Library Association. Who knew? So, I mean, I really try to figure what people are interested in. And one of the things with the numerical thing that I noticed, the ability to work with others, I would never appoint someone, never, who could not work with others. I know, and I hope that would get caught in a 3-way interview between appointments chair and committee chair, and town staff person, especially if we do hypotheticals with a piece of something that might be committee business. I'm really willing to give this lots of time to make it work.
You're doing great, and my comments, I very much appreciate what you're doing. Mark, do you have any comments?
No, I mean, I was comfortable with the original policy and having some criteria. And like Tracy, I'm used to a time where we actually have multiple candidates. I don't have a problem with committee members participating in an interview at all. It's not a problem. In most cases, if they had a quorum and they all wanted to participate, we'd have a posted meeting. So I haven't had issues with what we've had in the past, and I'm honestly trying to understand how this might work. I was looking for the information in my packet. I didn't realize it was sent in a separate email. So
And I thought I had asked to have a full packet tonight just so I would have everything. And I didn't look at it. I looked at it, in my own computer because I wrote it. And I didn't realize it wasn't in the packet. Yeah. So if everybody wants to wait till you have a hard copy, that's fine. But in the meantime, let me tell you what the potential danger is with doing it my way. And that is, if you had somebody as a committee chair who was incredibly credentialist, it could mean leaving out some wonderful committee volunteers who didn't have the education and the living internationally or across the country or something that some other people did. So I think the way to balance that is to concentrate on what they've done as volunteers and community members that's separate from the town. Also, if they've done anything for the town, that of course. But to really see that they are a contributor and somebody who feels like a member of a team and wants to contribute that way.
Oh, I think that's extremely important. I mean, I remember starting out many, many years ago and feeling very inferior to the other people I served with on the planning board. There were some great minds of lawyers and architects and all sorts of things, and I had none of that, right? And, I'm going to say I think it's different for women because women we have a harder time getting women to volunteer. It's obviously we've changed our ways a little bit, but in terms of the planning board, I think I've always said you don't need to know everything at the beginning. You learn as you go along. So I think those experiences that you're talking about are extremely important, but I'm just saying that those all still happen even with the old process.
May I ask, weren't we advised by town council that we really should not be using a numerical grading score system?
You asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't.
We
I don't
did
have that
inquire.
email.
When I first joined the select board, that was one of the inquiries that we made, and the note that came back from town council is that you should not be grading people.
I heard about that from Pam Barnes, and so that might have been your predecessor. But I did hear something about kind of, you could be challenged on that, but you could be challenged on everything, so.
I guess what I was thinking is what we've been doing without the grading score is the paragraph with what, for the appointments person, has struck them as making this person very qualified. And it's in every case that I've witnessed, and when I was doing my appointments, there was always something that was very easily picked out as the reason this person should get the appointment. I think in some ways we have to trust the appointments person and the committee chair, who's going to also be adding their 2 cents to land on the candidate that they choose. And the candidates have to understand that that is the part of the process.
I think also, just in answer to you, Mark, and what you were saying about, well, it worked that way and it seemed to work out okay, is I can tell you, for instance, that you can go back then before Dan Horgan being the appointment chair for that time, which is now years. I mean, that's like 4 or 5 years ago. So what we've had is, 4 or 5 years experience of doing it, in essence, with the proposal that Joyce is making. And it definitely requires, I think, as Joyce is saying, the three-way. They don't have to physically be at the meeting, but you'd never want to go ahead and appoint someone that the chair or the members of the committee were having an issue with. And you really don't want to have somebody
How would we know that, though? That's the
well, I mean,
problem.
if you're talking to the chair and the chair is telling you that, as I say, there were a couple of times when they just said to me, look, I can't make the meeting. I have no problem with this person. Go ahead. So it was myself and the staff member, because they didn't have, nobody on the committee had time to come, to it. So it was the staff person and myself that basically did the interview. It's never just one person that's doing it.
So are you
I have to
comfortable
admit, there was
with-
one time with one person.
Make a motion?
Yeah, I'd
Oh,
make
okay.
a motion to approve.
Well, I have some edits before, we can make the motion, I can do it in a discussion afterwards.
If we have a second on my motion.
Go ahead, Bob.
And I just wanted to make a suggestion, not that you asked me, but I've been through this a lot of times before, especially in employment. It's very similar to an employment situation. And what I would recommend that you at least try for a while is one of the things that Joyce recommended that resonated extremely well with me was that there would be an affirmative statement, she refers to it as a paragraph, that supports the appointment of a candidate by stating affirmative facts that led to this person being someone that should be appointed to the committee, positive attributes. And I would avoid at all costs the idea of having the person that wasn't selected have a paragraph of negative attributes. You never want that. You don't want a low score. You don't want to say anything that this person that was not wonderful. But there is always a reason when you have your top candidate that are positive reasons, and that way you have a record. Right, that is an evaluation, but it's all just on the positive side, and that is, I think, always served well to avoid disputes over, hiring situations.
If I can just add something, Madam Chair, I agree with what Bob is suggesting. My approach when I did this back in the dark ages, back in the old days,
Me too.
I would often, when there were a number of applicants, rarely did I find someone that didn't have some place where they could fit. So I spent most of my time trying to figure out if I had too many good applicants and what exactly. So I would often I spent most of my time asking committee applicants, if it didn't work out with this committee, are there any other committees, and go over the other committees and what they did.
Yeah.
So I spent a fair amount of time doing that and finding ways to, a long time ago, I used to coach Little League, and often the challenge there is to figure out, everybody deserves a place, everybody has some talent, and then trying to figure out where to plug people. And that has been my approach. And when it came time to presenting a recommendation to the board, usually it was one candidate, and they had the requisite experience to offer, the talent, the time, and I felt that those attributes were important. So adding a numerical value to that, and I will admit, I did not do that all the time, but when I did, it usually it wasn't in comparison to others. It was just to make it very clear that the applicant that was being presented for the position. So I often I had a difficult time saying no to folks that were very talented, and I was always looking for other places to encourage them. We had representatives, speaking about the Commission on Disability. I spent a lot of time recruiting that original
And
committee.
rebuilding, 'cause
and
that was
rebuilding
gone.
it.
Yeah.
And that took a fair amount of that. There were people that were interested in other committees that were recruited to that. So I know this is not an easy exercise, but there may be some value in fine-tuning it with some of Bob's suggestions and others for our next meeting, so that we can bring it up and maybe ratify or approve something. And if Liz has some suggestions, I think whatever people have, they should direct them to you, and then maybe we can bring this up again at our next meeting.
I did get comments from one board member, but only one.
Well, so if we're going to wait, then I would just, I sent my comments to Joyce. I do think we have to recognize that there are committees who are going to want to have a quorum, so we can't use the words, but not a quorum of the committee, because there may be occasions where it will be a quorum. So those are minor edits that need to be handled.
How can you do that with
You just say, but not a quorum of the committee
I'm not talking
unless
about, I'm not
posted.
talking about in the words of the policy, but I would say that the vast majority of the committees will want that. That's
fine.
Oh, no.
That's
I haven't
what
had
I'm saying.
anyone want it other than Old Kings Highway. And they did it 2 times violating open meeting law. Just in the time I've done this.
Experiences here, but we have to be prepared for it to swing back to quorums and committee interviews with the quorums there, so that just needs to be in there.
We may be overemphasizing and overestimating the amount of time people have to give to this.
Well, we always did it at the regular meeting, so it wasn't like they were given any more time. They came, like I said, they came to the planning
Interview
board
or
meeting during it,
came,
and
yeah.
they did it. But
So
anyway,
that would be obliging the committee chair to go to all the committee meetings. Some of those I wouldn't be able to make.
that's how
They'd
it
be
used to
against
work.
school committee meetings.
I understand. That's why we always appointed the newer elected person, so that they actually got to meet all the committees. That was the whole rationale for having the newer select board members, so that they actually went and met with all the committees.
And I did that for a few months, and then it was yanked away from me.
All right.
Just saying.
So, Dorcas, are you willing to remove your motion, and we'll bring it back up with, you can get edits in the meantime, and then we'll discuss it at our next meeting. Bob, can you put this on
Okay.
for our next meeting? And
August
we'll
12th.
tighten it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay, is that okay with everybody on the board?
Sure.
Okay. All right, next we are moving to we're a little bit early. Is everybody here for the vulnerability, or should we take things out of order? I think they're not here yet. Okay, so let's do some, if you're all right, we'll do some board and committee actions. Joyce, you want to, if it's okay with
Okay.
the board, we can skip to that?
Yeah. It was as I look at this, it was the Gulf Enterprise reappointments, Donovan and Levitin, that I got as as reappointments. I actually am unsure about the Alan Harrison appointment, so I am going to ask when we get to that, to ask that that be put to the next meeting, so I can
So we'll
interview
hold
the
that.
person,
Yeah,
find out more about it. Okay, we have some resignations to announce. I move that we thank Courtney Butler, who has resigned from the Community and Economic Development Committee, for her time of service and wish her well.
so moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Danielle Newcomb is also leaving from the Community and Economic Development Committee. I move that we say goodbye to her with thanks and wish her well.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Joe Gibbs has also resigned from the Community and Economic Development Committee. I move that we thank him for his service and wish him well.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Then we have a second Joe resigning from the Community and Economic Development Committee, Joseph Manning. I move that we thank him for his service and wish him well for the future.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
This one, oh, so sad. I move that we thank Sarah Porter for her months of service on the Old Kings Highway Committee as an architect, and wish her well in her future endeavors and give her a big thank you. I would just flag for my colleagues, that means we have to be on the lookout for an architect again.
So
moved.
I would note that it is the Old Kings Highway Historic Committee, just to have it on the record correctly. Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then I want to move and give a big vote of thanks to Thomas Kerr, who gave so many years to the Yarmouth Scholarship Committee, and thank him and send him on to read things that are more fun than applications.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, new appointments. I move that we appoint to the Energy Committee Dean Sorensen. He's going to be, I think, a real catch for the Energy Committee. He'll be the second engineer who also teaches at Worcester Tech. So we're going to have a great combination of the intense technical background with the ability to explain it to those of us who are civilians.
So moved?
Second. I just want to ask, this was an interview with the Energy Chair?
Yes. Yep. Energy Fair actually brought him to me.
Good.
Yep.
Poll us, Joyce.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then I move that we table Recreation Commission till our next meeting. Do I need a motion for that, or do I just say,
We'll just hold it.
okay? The Community Preservation Committee, I move that we appoint Christine Brantley as the representative from the Open Space Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on the Golf Enterprise Committee, two reappointments. I move that we reappoint Richard Donovan to the Golf Enterprise Committee.
So moved?
For a 3-year term.
Full 3-year term, yep, but it would be
June 2028.
half over right now, so really it's 2.5 years.
It's through June of 2028.
Oh, sorry, I don't have, oh, of course, it's on the individual, yeah, okay. That just reminds me of another thing that I'll bring up when we talk the next time. I think it might be easier if all of our appointments, all of our appointment years ended in a single month, but that's just a thought for the future. Okay, so I move Golf Enterprise Committee reappointment of Richard Donovan through June of 2028. He's would be continuing as a regular member.
So moved.
Second, and Doreen Levitin is the same.
Oh, yeah, but I thought we needed to do them individually.
Okay, if you want to.
Again.
Oh, see, that's the sort of slippery slope that I get onto, and that I'm slapped.
No, you're not slapped. It's just, as a matter of time, we just usually take them.
Okay, well, each person gets their little 10 seconds of fame. I move to reappoint Doreen.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Doreen Leviton to the Golf Enterprise Committee, a regular appointment to serve through June 2028.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, reappointments to the Yarmouth Historical Commission. I move that we reappoint Robert Kelly to the Yarmouth Historical Commission with a big thank you for what he's done for South Yarmouth history in particular.
Through July of 2028.
Okay, through July of 2028.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yay, Bob.
And then I move to reappoint Sam Lawrence to the Yarmouth Historical Commission as well for a full term ending in July 2028.
No, this appointment says the historical, as an associate member through a one-year term for July 2026.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking on the main list here, sorry. Associate, so just a one-year appointment.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy. So I move that we appoint Sam Lawrence to an associate membership of 1 year to the Yarmouth Historical Association.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? I think we're done.
Great, thank you. Does anybody want to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the May 14th, 2024 meeting as necessity.
And I second.
Okay, we will all have to vote on necessity. Is there any comments, amendments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes pass. All right, what we want to do now? Do we want to discuss the town, is there somebody coming, Bob, for the special town meeting calendar, or can we take care of that now?
No, we can take care of the special town meeting calendar right now, and I'd like to go through the dates just so we talk about it a little bit. This would be a calendar for a Monday, November 17, 2025 special town meeting, and the vote would be today, July 22, 2025, to set the town meeting date. And in doing so, there would be a deadline for the submission of special town meeting articles set for September 12. And we would hope to have a final draft for the board's review as of September 30th. And we would get the Finance Committee recommendations by October 10. And we also, and this will be an important one because one of the major features of this upcoming town meeting are the planning board recommendations for zoning, and they may also have a local comprehensive plan recommendation as well. And so we've set a tentative date that I have shared with the planning board of having a joint meeting with the select board to discuss the articles on October 21, 2025. And also that evening is set to execute the special town meeting warrant. And if there winds up being, a problem with doing those both in the same evening, we could work that out. But I wanted to give the planning board as long as possible to finish all of their zoning, because I know they have a lot of work to do and they've been working hard. So that's what we try to do, is move them as late as we could. And then the warrant would be submitted to the newspaper and published, the notice of the warrant, on October 30th, and we're going to post it by Halloween, October 31, for the November 17 date at the DY Intermediate School on Station Avenue.
Excellent. We've talked to them, made sure that building's available for us that night.
Yes.
Excellent.
I don't think there is any, some of our goal meeting, we talked about having opportunities for the public to be educated about the warrant, but that's more for the May town meeting, I would think, the spring town meeting.
I think we should do it in both cases.
I think we will. We're going to do videos. We're going to try to ramp up as much as possible, and maybe, you know, when we start going through the warrant, we can talk about that, just to make sure any expectations that
We
you
need to
have.
reserve a night for that?
We'll put it on our agenda when we talk about the warrant.
Okay.
It'll be kind of the same discussion. Review the articles. We'll talk about the outreach efforts.
Will we allow discourse from the public?
I think any questions you can get in advance in any form that we can prepare for, I think is very helpful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we find out that there's issues that are big, then maybe we do set a time aside. It's hard to tell at this point.
Usually we have a night, it's very normal that, I don't think we've skipped a town meeting. We have a night where it's sort of a mini town meeting, that a portion of the agenda is reserved to go right through the articles with the public and to get any questions or comments.
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay, so does anybody want to vote on the calendar?
I move we accept the calendar as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion, or
No.
seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay. So, we're still a little bit ahead of schedule, so let us look at our upcoming agenda review here.
I thought, oh, 7:55, beg your pardon, yes. Okay.
Upcoming agenda review today is July 22nd. Our next meeting is August 12th. Bob will probably get to this later in his updates, but we have been presented with a memo from Bob about an assistant town administrator appointment that he'll get into, but we will put that on our agenda for a vote. A vote's not required, but action, if no action's taken in 21 days, then he can appoint. So it's helpful to Bob if we do vote to appoint, so that way he can move forward without having to wait the 21 days.
And a nice welcome to the town for the person.
Yes. Also, tentatively, the Yarmouth Housing Authority is on there. Has there been any outreach to them as of yet, Bob, about this date?
We sent in an email, but I'm working also with Mary, and we're going to try to talk to them personally and make sure this is set up. We moved it one meeting hence, but we're doing some personal contact with them.
All right, and we also have a presentation for the comprehensive plan coming up. Has anybody reviewed it, or is there any comments on what's upcoming? I'm sure when Bob tries to promulgate our goals, they will be filling in a lot of these dates with items that we've discussed, but
I would just note that we had on our last agenda items, we had a meeting on August 5th, Dorcas's birthday. But we're.
Have the day off, that'd be
We
great.
took that off then.
I think we need to meet.
I think Dorcas has been lobbying for birthday off. That's what I think.
I think she should get it.
There you go.
My family would be very happy to hear that as well.
I think you should, as long as we meet the, if, you know, we're not backlogged right now, and, you know, having 2 meetings in the month is meeting our
Okay.
charter requirements in the summertime. We try to
So
minimize.
August 19th is out, but August 26th has been added.
That's what it looks like.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that, or Mark?
Yeah, I have two calendars. I have one in front of me dated June 18th that has August 5th and August 19th, and I have the one in front of us that has 2 other dates. So
Yeah.
I'm just a bit confused on what our dates are in August. So Bob,
It looks to
12
me
and
like it's the
26.
12th and
12th and 26th.
Is that okay with
Okay,
everybody?
so the 5th and the 19th are not on. Okay.
All right, as long as that works for everybody, and by the time we get to August 12th, we'll have to regroup again, so I don't like to go too far down the road with this. I just like to look at what's right in front of us. All right, is everybody okay with the upcoming agenda?
I think.
Anybody need anything added?
Let me just make note of the fact, at the planning board meeting, there was discussion of their meeting with us for the 12th. And there was some interest in at least giving us a mini update on some of the articles that they're working on. I think they're interested in getting some initial feedback from us. So,
Planning board
yes,
on the
on the
local
12th.
comprehensive
Yeah,
plan.
well, there's an article dealing with home-based business, and then there's another one on boat storage, and there's another one on ADUs, bringing our ADU bylaw into compliance with some of the state changes. So I think they wanted to give us a brief update. That didn't mean necessarily they wanted to come and deal with it only on that night, but I think there's some desire by the planning board members to get some idea as to how supportive we might be with respect to their approach on these measures. So I just wanted to pass that along. Again, I wasn't asked to convey this. I just picked it up by following the planning board meeting, that they had a discussion and they were making a pitch to make sure that there was sufficient space on the calendar to at least discuss briefly.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of space, and there's space in the 26th, too, so whenever they want to meet, I think we'll get them in here. Have they, you haven't heard from them yet, Bob?
From the planning board, yeah, well, we've been working really closely with them through Kathy and talked about all of the issues with the town meeting. We haven't talked in a lot of detail about the 12th, so that's the first that I've heard that they want to review the zoning articles on the 12th. But if they're in to give us an update on the comprehensive plan, I think that would be excellent, because it gives us just more time for you to consider these issues before you have to make a recommendation.
And we already put the bicycling event back on for a hearing
That's right.
for the next meeting for their alcohol license, so we have to add that.
And we also have to ask to return to Joyce's.
And the committee policy will go back as well. Okay, perfect.
Good, now we know we're going to be busy.
Well, the list of projected agenda items, it's, the Arts Committee discussion keeps getting crossed off, but it hasn't officially been crossed off, so it could get crossed off for real.
We don't need to have that discussion anymore?
No, apparently not.
Well, I have asked Pam to think of people on town staff who might be logical town reps to that, even though I know we decided we don't actually have to have one. And so she is exploring that.
Okay. All right, well, when it's ready, let us know.
I guess we leave it on then.
Yeah, I mean, at some point in time, is there anything else that we can move up?
I would like to see us move up the transfer fee for property sales. I'd also like to see us discuss seasonal rentals and how we can perhaps follow what some of the other towns are doing to discourage the seasonal rental issue.
Well, we have a major study going on right now for the seasonal rentals. I hope everyone did their interview. We haven't got the recommendations, but the select board are key stakeholders in that. So that, I think the timing on it is going to be perfect as soon as we get some interim, results of the
Maybe
study.
that should be on this way out list, just so that it keeps percolating up to the top.
As soon as the study's done, they'll be before us, because that's,
Yeah.
all right. Is there any individual items? Liz, do you have any individual items?
Nope, I do not.
Joyce, do you have any individual?
I do not either.
I do not.
Mark? Okay, great. We are moving right along. Let us discuss the consent agenda before we get to our other items. Madam Chair, I think everyone's here for the MVP. Okay, all right. So, do you guys want to do the consent agenda now or wait till after?
Let's wait till after, because I wanted
Till
to
after.
make a comment about the 200,000.
Yep, Bob's prepared. Did you see the email?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, great. Okay, Jeff, great. Come on down. Hi. Good evening.
Actually working. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Dave Condon is on, so we should bring him in. He's remote this evening.
He's not part of this particular project.
He's not on your team?
Nope, not on this project.
Poor guy.
Lucky him.
He can join if he wants.
All right, good evening, Amanda Lima, the town engineer. We're coming back a year later. Since the last time we were here, we were pursuing a grant with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness. It was a 2-year grant, and with me tonight is Brittany Hoffinger from Woods Hole Group, and she'll go into details in regards to the components of that grant. But at this point, we're into year 1, nearing completion, and getting ready for year 2. So we just wanted to come tonight to just give a brief update of where we're at. We have an upcoming public outreach meeting scheduled for next week. And we just want to kind of give some information to the board.
Where will that meeting take place, and what's the date?
Brittany has that information, but it's July 30th, and it will be here in the hearing room.
Thanks, Amanda. As I said, my name is Brittany Hofnagel with Woods Hole Group. I work with the climate and sustainability team. And we're here, the purpose tonight is just to provide a brief update on the 2-year MVP grant. I'll quickly review and define the problem that we're trying to think about, provide some of the preliminary results, and then discuss some of the next steps. So just want to draw attention that this is a collaborative work project with the town of Yarmouth, the NVP, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, and also working with Beta Group, who is involved in some other resiliency projects around the town. We did create, because this is a 2-year project and the engagement and outreach is really important as a piece of this project, we do have this nice little new logo that's going to kind of be the brand and the face of this project, especially leading into year 2 as we start planning this community-wide resiliency, what do you want to call it, fair, as an educational piece for the community to learn about this project and to see one of your resiliency projects on the ground being finished. So I just want to bring your attention to the study area of this project. We did base this project on the Route 28 corridor, so Route 28 and then everything below Route 28. For the purpose of the technical analysis, we did include some of the major arteries that go north of Route 28, just to see how emergency egress and emergency response might have to utilize some of those roads to avoid flooding. So we all know this area south of Route 28 is pretty densely populated. It's a low-lying floodplain, and we know that there's a community concern that a lot of these roads are flooded during coastal storms. So whether it's a combination of coastal storm surge or some issues related to stormwater and the drainage of that stormwater, those two forces combined can cause concerns for how emergency responders access homes and people in this area, but also how do you get people out of this area to the hospital or to other emergency facilities. So that's kind of the basis of this project. We did deploy a tool called Network Analyst, where it's a GIS program, like a model, that helps calculate the amount of time it would take a fire truck or an ambulance to go from point A to point B. We did conduct interviews with fire and police. We also conducted interviews with some of the neighborhood association members that live in these neighborhoods to get some of the feedback on what roads they know that already flooded, but also some of the thresholds for fire and police to actively and successfully reach these residents. So they mentioned that if there was more than 8 inches of flooding on a road, they might have to rethink about traversing a road. And they are hoping to get on scene within 6 minutes. And so if any time delay of traversing flooded roads adds more time than 6 minutes, there's concern about the health and safety of these residents. So we did a model to understand how the road network is impacted when flooded so that we can identify other roads that we could develop resiliency strategies for to help them become more resilient in the future as we expect the climate to change in the future. And so this map is just showing the location of the 2 fire departments and the hospital and some of those vital neighborhood points that we modeled to identify those roads that are vulnerable, that are potentially at risk for not serving emergency access or egress from neighborhoods. So I'm sure you've all seen maps like this in the past from our previous presentations, but we are using the Massachusetts Coast Flood Risk Model, which is one of the state planning tools for coastal storm surge. And so those results are helping us identify these vulnerable roads for the purposes of emergency access and egress. So we looked at the 2030 results. In understanding those results, we wanted to select certain storms. We wanted to understand what roads posed an immediate threat. So we were looking at storms likely to occur as soon as 2030. So the 20% probability storm is a near-term risk, but it's a more common storm, much smaller. Whereas the 5%, the storm that has a 5% chance of happening is that another near-term risk, but it's a less common storm and a larger storm. We also wanted to look at the future, even beyond 2030, and compare it to one of the ones that we looked at in 2030. So we chose the 2050 20% to understand the longer term risks and a storm that's more common, but it's going to likely be more intense as sea level rises. So this is just showing the increase in severity for the 2050 results, and you can see the road network on top of that. So, as I mentioned earlier, we did interview fire and police, and it was important for us to understand if there was a threshold that emergency vehicles would not traverse, and they mentioned 8 inches of flooding. So if a road is flooded by 8 inches or more, they would have to choose to either turn around, and that turnaround could be vital, critical for accessing emergencies, but could pose a negative impact. So it was.
Just to add on to that, they did mention in the meeting that they're pursuing grants for higher clearance vehicles. As of right now, that's the current limitation.
Right. And so, there's definitely some assumptions.
Before you move off of that, though, I'm just curious, when you say new vehicles, these are the fire trucks?
It would be more the ambulances, I think.
Ambulances.
Yeah,
More ambulances. Right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Replace our host.
So, there's some decision making. Some users of the vehicles might make a decision to go across the 8 inches. It's just that for our analysis, we had to have a threshold so that we could model these roads. So we chose 8 inches based on the feedback that we got from fire and police.
Yeah, they made it very clear that they would get to where they needed to go. But, again, this is for the model. The model also assumes that they'll be traveling the speed limit in order to get to certain locations. So, again, you kind of have to put in certain criteria to at least be able to compare one roadway to another in comparison.
So the next 3 graphics are just going to kind of show you the locations of flooded that are above that 8 inches that are during those selected storm scenarios. So everything in red here is projected to flood at least 8 inches in as soon as 2030 in a smaller, more frequent storm. Then if you consider the 2030 timeframe for that larger storm, the additional segments of orange add the additional length of road that's likely to flood at an 8-inch threshold. And then the last graphic is that extension of yellows shows you the projection of flooding along the roadways above 8 inches during that 2050 storm that has that annual 20% chance of flooding. So as Amanda said, we used a model called Network Analyst. It's through the Esri GIS software. And the tool basically calculates the amount of time it takes to travel along a road based on the length of the segment and the speed of that road. So it was really important for us to validate the speed limits, the stop signs, where they're located, and how long it would take to turn through traffic. And we're able to develop the routes that emergency vehicles would travel during normal conditions when it's not flooding, but also what the routes would do if they had to reroute around these original routes. So I'm just going to quickly go through. I might skip over some of these just for sake of time, but I just want to walk you through what the results of some of these modeling assessments look like. So in this graphic, this is showing travel. You can look at these either to or from and to, whether it's from the hospital to the location or from the location to the hospital. But in this case, we're looking at an outbound scenario where you're going from the hospital to this location.
What time of year is this analysis?
Yes,
if you
that
went
is,
out there right now, I'm not sure you'd meet that criteria.
that is the assumption, is that, you know, whether or not these times would change during a popular seasonal, during the summer versus winter, likely would have.
So for this basis, what time of year did you use?
This is just considering the like the speed limits. So we didn't add a seasonality to this analysis.
Okay.
It's more not so much focusing on the time or the duration, it's the more or less the delta between how much does it add, just to be able to compare them, as well as just more, as you can see from the circles, and I'm sure Brittany will go into more information, but you see the green and the blue line, that's pretty much the straight shot
So the
that
basis
you would
is
go,
all
the
the same.
basis. And then, you know, if a roadway floods, now they're being, you know, directed another way where it adds on, sometimes it's only 10 seconds, sometimes it's 2 minutes. So it's, because we had that conversation, because I'm like, well, police and fire wouldn't take a right here, they'd take a left over here or something like that. And it isn't so much like, is the path, you know, correct? It's where it gets redirected and how much time it adds. And is that acceptable, or, you know, how do we start the goal is to look at all these routes and then trying to start figuring out how to prioritize making improvements to the roadways and or communicating how somebody in South Yarmouth is able to get out. Do they leave their house? Do they go left or right on South Shore Drive? And like being able to help them get that information.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to refresh, yeah, so if you're looking at anything that's green, that's the original route. So that is the fastest time, probably the most direct route to get from point A to point B. So we're calling, that's not during flooding conditions, that's just the fastest time it would take to travel from point A to point B. The blue line, sometimes the blue line is the route it would take if it was, wow, I must have had it held down. During the 2030 20% scenario, the purple line is the route for the 2035% scenario, and that brown color is the 2050 20% scenario. So in this case, you can see that the original route and the 2030 route is the same, but then as soon as 2050, we get some flooding along Route 20. We projected flooding along Route 28, which causes the rerouting of the analysis up on Buck Island Road. And then as soon as 2050, there's some flooding along Main Street that further impacts the routing. And we do have the signature time, the total. So it starts about 23 minutes, and you're adding about 3 minutes and 4 minutes when roads are projected to flood. And just to give you another caveat, it's like we didn't include all of the roads north of 28. You know, there could be an executive decision to not go the whole way up to Buck Island Road, but for the purpose of the study, where our focus was kind of south of 28, we decided to limit the traveling of those more neighborhood roads. So this one is an example of West Yarmouth, traveling from the hospital or to the hospital from Rachel Road and Algonquin Street. Normal sunny day conditions, they would travel, you would normally travel south to the location, but because of flooding, as soon as 2030 20% storm, you're having to reroute around around this South Street area on Park Avenue flooding. I'm going to just skip this one. I'm not skipping them on purpose. It's just for the sake of time. Don't want to go through every example. So we did do some examples going from the Buck Island Fire Department, similar results here is that the preferred route is coming from the fire department down through this location. But as soon as we get to that 2050 scenario, because of flooding on this road, it has to divert a little bit further east. And again, these are long-term planning. So, this is whether or not roads get flooded during 2030 or as soon as 2050, those are type of the parameters that will help us prioritize which roads to focus on. This one's interesting, going from Buck Island Fire Department down to Bayview. This is the preferred route in original conditions. But as you see, because of flooding along Windmill and Bayview here, there's no access to this neighborhood at all. So this would be some type of factor of what solutions could we provide here to either prevent flooding of this neighborhood, or how do we have to rethink creatively getting access to and from this area. Similar story for this Edgartown Beach, Englewood Beach area. Direct route is shown, but because of flooding as soon as 2030, there's no access to this area. And we already know this area is a problem. We see a lot of photos from DPW, from Amanda, that Shore Road floods frequently here. And there's now that sign that indicates the depth of flooding. And then I'll just focus on this one related to South Yarmouth. We were considering the point here to be South Shore Drive and Wilfin Road. Direct access is coming down South Street, but because of flooding as soon as 2030, 20% scenario, we have to reroute around the neighborhood, and this adds approximately 6 inches to the travel. Yeah. However, because of flooding along that route as well, and most of the area in between, there's no alternative access to this area as soon as the larger storm comes through. So this is a really key area. This is an area that we know is super vulnerable, and so having to think creatively of what road segments along this neighborhood we prioritize to either elevate or develop a new route will be really critical for this neighborhood. And this is a similar story. It's just showing you a different transportation point, but it's kind of the same story from the location here. I think just want to emphasize that, again, this is a model, and we're using assumptions based on the speed along the segments, decisions that fire and emergency vehicles are making. But this is really just being used as a tool to help indicate, the consequence to responding in time to residents, and it's going to help identify the critical roads that could be prioritized for resiliency strategies. We know that there was previous work from the Low Lines Road Project through the Cape Cod Commission that identified priority roads, but this takes that process to a step above, an additional step to kind of integrate emergency access and egress from these neighborhoods as well. So ultimately, once we have all these routes settled, we can put them in a matrix or a list in a spreadsheet and understand every road segment that causes a rerouting of some of these major routes, and start to look at either the time difference, whether the routes are impassable from the beginning, identify which road segments should be prioritized. And I do have an example of the table of some of the preliminary results that Amanda will hopefully be using to help prioritize and make some decisions on some of these resiliency strategies. But we will go into more detail in the next steps when we have our public meeting on July 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 in the town hall meeting. And Amanda, you will be sending out a flyer, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And it'll also be available on Zoom. And I don't know if this is an appropriate time, but kind of transitioning to like what next year looks like this information is gonna get feed into year 2. And as part of year 2, we have our 2 engineering interns have been collecting field data that's analyzing all the homes in this project area to kind of get an idea, because we've had conversations with building and conservation of like who's built their home with resiliency, because it will be able to kind of compare this, like if a solution is to, raise a road, how many of the homes have had some kind of component of resiliency, whether it's a home that is on stilts or, has been mounded up. And so we're collecting that data for everything south of Route 28 with the 2 interns. So that information will get kind of fed, because we'll be able, and the county has also done outreach for properties along the coastal edge. And, but it will be doing, as Brittany had mentioned, a fair, and that hopefully will be at the Parker's River Landing, which is also a site that has been built with resiliency, to kind of, and we'll have different entities come in to kind of help educate the residents here in regards to maybe they don't understand the vulnerability of where they're at or how they compare to their neighbor. Maybe they see something but aren't sure what it actually means, when someone's house is, mounded up, or, because we get those questions that do come in.
And when do you expect the fair?
Will be within the next calendar year.
Okay.
It's kind of the last component of this 2-year grant project. So we're going to spend the next year reaching out to Cape Cod Commission, fire, police, might get the AmeriCorps, local AmeriCorps involved, but really planning this event where local people can come and learn, see a resiliency site, but also, look about some of their own options they could take on in their own home and space.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, may I just ask, so you're saying that you're going to have this meeting next week on the 30th?
The public outreach
Right.
is to talk about the routes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd make a suggestion that you might want to reach out to the neighborhood associations in those greatly affected areas, because they have a network of getting communication out that's far exceeds anything else, because you're working with such a short window of getting in touch with them. I think it would give people an opportunity to have a heads up to come.
Yeah, we've had one-on-one with Hyannis Park Civic
Like Hyannis
Association.
Park, yeah.
And others, they actually had written a memo for the LCP that was like pretty relevant, so they had provided that to us, which we had included, because that gave us a lot of insight on like windmill, as Brittany had mentioned earlier. So yeah, there's been a lot of direct correspondence, and it's challenging to engage, and we're continuing to reach out for that.
Right. Okay. Glad to hear it.
Another component of this we didn't talk about is reaching directly to the businesses that are along this corridor and inviting them to hear about some of the work that we're doing in year 2, and actually, for those that are interested, potentially providing one-page info sheets for the businesses that also may be vulnerable in this area. So that's our next task for outreach for year 2.
I had a question that goes back to your first map, but we don't need to pull it up. It just looked to me that the South Yarmouth Fire Department was on the edge of your areas of concern. Does it pose any special risks to the fire department if there is flooding? Are there any special measures that could be taken to protect that important entity?
You said South Yarmouth?
South Yarmouth, yeah, on Old Main Street.
Yeah, so we did assess that as part of the initial vulnerability assessment, because it is a town municipal building. And so we did provide recommendations for things that the building facility could take on to either elevate the important infrastructure within the building. There's potential of deploying barriers. Whether or not emergency response is still important. So I could see that the flooding barriers would be prohibitive of them responding. That would have to be a longer term planning, is whether or not the location of the South Yarmouth Fire Department is in the right location. That might take a little bit more longer term planning to decide if that's the right location.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any grants available to homeowners at this point in time to help with the resiliency planning? If you find you're in a zone, and you have recommendations, say, even for the fire department, for municipalities, I know, but specifically for homeowners.
Right. So I'm not the expert on this, but I think FEMA has a program for lifting homes, but I think it has to do with more of a community-wide resiliency planning, that the town itself would have to sign on to this program, and that would provide funding for homeowners to raise their houses.
How does that also trigger homeowners insurance situations when the town, this is a great exercise for us, right, to plan? But at the same time, is it going to
Jeopardize us? Put a flag up?
yeah, with the flooding and with the homeowners insurance?
I mean, at this point, when you look at the FEMA mapping, it's an outline in regards to the property. It's not looking at the elevation. They have to provide a flood elevation certificate. So that information would already be provided to their insurance company. So this is more or less like what type, and we don't have that information. This is more of like what type of resiliency has been. Like if, 6 of the homes are, raised above the road elevation, then, it might be easier to try to elevate or at least, bring some education to the others that maybe haven't or are thinking about it. Or if all the roads have, all the houses on a road have resiliency, then we can just raise the road potentially. So that I think it's just more like education for us to be able to plan for the areas that are impacted.
Okay. So I think, obviously the public input is a critical piece with this, and I'm sure you'll be back before us at some point in time when you make your priorities. But it sounds to me like, some of those suggestions are, there's costs associated with any type of mitigation. So, we need to keep that on the forefront of our mind and figure out how we can accomplish those in terms of funding. So, Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm glad we're talking about flooding and I'm glad you raised the issue of insurance, because insurance is becoming increasingly a problem for homeowners throughout southeastern Massachusetts, as well as other areas of the country where they're getting impacted by flooding. And so I'm glad we're talking about it. I do think as a community, the more we can do to help homeowners and to help us all be, quote, resilient, and that's a loose term that can mean a lot of different things. But I think the more we can be involved in this, I think in the long run it'll help us. But this is a Cape problem. In fact, it even goes throughout southeastern Massachusetts. We just have so many areas that are being impacted by flooding. And we're seeing just more and more communities getting either blacklisted or finding it almost impossible to have insurance offered in their community. So that's the trend that we're on right now. This is a problem that's going to continue to get serious. And so I'm glad, Madam Chair, that you raised the issue of insurance, because I think this should be part of our thinking. Yes, we need to be concerned about safety and getting people to hospitals and getting people to, doctor's appointments and helping people figure out routes where they can go and how they can get there. I think the other set of issues that we're going to have to look at is sort of the structural issues. How do we make our community resilient? It wasn't that long ago that the Army Corps of Engineers was recommending a fairly ambitious and robust shoreline protection program here in South Yarmouth between Bass River and Parkers River, because of the fact that those beach areas were quite vulnerable to storms. And this was back in the mid-'80s, and there are a lot of studies, a lot of reports probably sitting around someplace collecting dust. But I think these are the kinds of measures that need to be looked at if we're going to be serious about resilience. The county has a dredging program. Maybe the county should be doing more dredging on the south side. Maybe we need to have a borrow site to grab sand so that we can assist in making some of our shorelines more stable with a ready supply of sand from a safe, environmentally secure site. So I'm hoping that as we look at this problem in a global sense, that we think big, because it is a big problem. And I think it's great that you're very good at getting grant monies to, pursue this work, and I think it's terrific. It's great. Yarmouth benefits from having talented consultants help us get access to funds so that we can keep these investigations going. So I think it's good just to, I think you're hearing from the board that we think this is an important topic, and I like I said, I think we need to think big, and we need to think about the range of solutions in a very straightforward and honest way. Some of these areas are going to require clearly roads that are to be elevated. They're probably going to include areas where drainage systems have to be completely redone. I know, our DPW is looking very hard at all of our drainage areas and trying to figure out what we can do as a community. So I'm not suggesting that this isn't already on the DPW's list, but I think it helps sort of highlight the importance of doing this kind of work, because we're going to have to make investments there. When you look at what's left of the Weather Service, they're telling us that 2025 is a big year for coastal flooding and flash flooding. All right, flash flooding. We've seen the reports, we've seen the stories, and here on Cape Cod we have our flash flooding issues that we need to be concerned about. I'm assuming, are we looking at flash flooding? Is that part of your calculus in being able to better prepare ourselves for flash flooding incidents in the future, or are we just looking at sea level rise and coastal flooding?
For this particular project, just looking at future sea level rise and storm surge. I'm not aware of any work currently that's being able to predict flash flooding. I'm sure we know areas that maybe are facing droughts that if you get a lot of precipitation might increase the chances of flash flooding, but I don't know if there's any work that helps predict that on Cape Cod as of right now.
Well, I think what we're doing is we're getting a better handle in terms of the collecting of data as to when there is a flash flood, what the additional volume of water is. And the Weather Services, again, what's left of the Weather Service is doing a reasonably decent job of calculating that information. I do think I would recommend that we put it on our list of things to factor in. I mean, it'd be great we're not going to be resilient if we miss the flash flood issue. I mean, we might find ourselves, back with another problem. So I think all of these things have to be factored in. Another thing I want to draw attention to is years ago, I remember in 2002, 2003, the town of Yarmouth spent a lot of time and money looking at areas throughout the town that had where flooding was a problem, and a lot of it had to do with high groundwater situations. And we identified well over a dozen places in the community. Is any of that information going to be looked at?
So those are two, understanding that they are both water and they are related to flooding. This, again, is more of the coastal flooding that's coming up. We do review that 2002 groundwater study, and there have been projects that are reviewed. We meet with Highway and others to talk about kind of where we see complaints coming in, and there's two particular areas that we do have it. We are addressing with the drainage money that we get allotted every year, replacing what's out there. There's a pie chart as part of the capital improvement program that shows the aging infrastructure of our existing drainage, especially in some of those neighborhoods. We did purchase a camera a couple of years ago to be able to inspect inside the pipes. So that's an effort that's ongoing to kind of get an idea of the condition. We have an idea of when it comes to age what we can project will happen, but now we can actually get in and kind of look at what's there. So those assessments have been done. And again, I think there's been more interest. Right now, the budget that it gets allocated is about $200,000 to $250,000, but each location is right now about $100,000.
Yeah.
So at the rate that we're at, we're only able to do 2 to 3 applications to kind of resolve some of these outstanding issues. So if there needs a larger need, and right now there's on the town website is projected the next 5 years.
Yeah.
In regards to the drainage complaints that we have. There is an asterisk on them that does designate whether they're a high groundwater area or just a low-lying area that's collecting water that's not infiltrating in an appropriate time. And we kind of, again, similar to this model, you have to be able to compare things. So when we receive a drainage complaint, we do inventory it, and then we go and inspect it 24 hours later. If that puddle has not resolved and infiltrated into the ground, then we have it, kind of like go to the next list. And again, at this point, we're about 5 years of a backlog when it comes to the drainage. So
Yeah, and this may very well be a discussion, a bigger discussion that we have to have as a board, and that is how, because I'm a believer that the drainage, we asked the DPW to do a lot of things. I'm well aware of that, and I think this is one of the areas that we need to give more support for, at least have a more open discussion with the residents and the taxpayers here in the town, because I think our drainage problems and our flooding problems are fairly significant here. And with, like I said, with climate change, with the way things are changing in terms of the environment, we're going to have to deal with more of these issues in the years ahead. And I just want to make sure that we at least, at the very least, have the opportunity to educate the community as to how serious the problem is. And while we may not have the money these days to budget and to plan and to tackle these problems, I think to some degree we owe our residents at least a sense of just how significant the problem is. I get very nervous when we start balkanizing the community and saying, well, we're going to focus on coastal flooding problems dealing with sea level rise, but not flooding problems dealing with other causes, or we're not going to pay attention to flash flooding. I think the flooding issues are serious enough that we need to look at them all, and we have to be careful about how we sort of segment the community in terms of, here's a part of the town where we're going to take care of the flooding problems, but here's some other areas where maybe the homeowners are kind of stuck and on their own. I think we have to look at this problem holistically in a very broad way and recognize that there's some serious money that's going to have to be spent, and we're going to have a conversation about what those options are and how we deal with it. And again, I don't want to be overly negative about this. I just think what you're doing is incredibly important and serves a very valuable purpose. And all I'm suggesting is I want to see you do more of this analysis, more of this work, put more recommendations on the table so that we can get a full grasp and a full picture of just how serious this problem is. So thank you.
And just to add on, I think when it comes to, the amount of outreach and us coming and giving updates and getting the grant money, the drainage money, we also do stretch. Like we have an $800,000 grant to help support with those. But I think what it comes down to is that people find it a lot easier to call when they have drainage issues when they're on the phone, and they may not be as aware of the impacts from the sea level rise and the coastal flooding. So that's why we're kind of trying to solicit information to kind of help that part of it. We do get, and it is attached to a lot of phone calls in regards to drainage complaints. So I do think people are just easier and more understanding.
You track the complaints?
We do, yeah.
You do. That's great. So you have a database to work with. So you have a pretty good idea where all the problem areas are.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it changes too. We've had ones where we've narrowed down a list of what we could prioritize for the upcoming season, and then all of a sudden, different criteria, whether it's another area, more intense storm, they are prioritizing. If a system fails, obviously that's a higher priority.
Yeah. One last point, Madam Chair. What got my attention is I attended a region-wide meeting the other day of the Coastal Resources Committee that the county has established. And in that meeting, we had natural resources officials, engineers from various communities. It was a fairly well-represented group. We had officials, people just like you folks, representing virtually every Cape Cod town. And this is what everybody's talking about. They're talking about flash flooding. They're talking about sea level rise. They're talking about drainage systems that are inadequate to deal with a lot of these problems. And it seems like other communities are struggling to really wrestle with this. So I think it's important for us. I mean, it's great, and it's great that other towns are doing a very aggressive and more ambitious level of effort. But I just want to say to everybody here, I think we need to do that as well. I'm all in favor of getting you more money, more resources to do more analysis to better help us understand the bigger picture. It's good that we're looking at some of the pieces, but there's a lot more to this.
Right. I would just add on to that, coastal storm surge is one issue. I recognize that drainage is another issue. And for a long time, people treated them both very separately. And now we're coming to an age where one is exacerbated by the other, or, you know, vice versa. And as you said, Yarmouth is not the only community dealing with that, but it's also who's the expert of joining coastal storm surge and our stormwater drainage together. It's a really hard science. The science that we're doing for just coastal storm surge is really hard. So imagining combining the two, it's even harder. So I think a lot of companies, even beyond Woods Hole Group, are still trying to find a way to model the combination of precipitation, stormwater related issues with coastal storm surge. And in fact, I think that's where a lot of planning and science is happening right now, is trying to form the two. And I think we're just on the precipice of trying to get to some of that science, and it's extremely difficult and challenging. So I think it's a good point. And we're trying. We're trying to hire a hydrologist to kind of answer these questions. We're just not at that point right now where we can really understand how they merge together.
So I feel like sometimes the problem is sort of accelerating at a pace that we're not really quite prepared to handle.
No, I recognize that. Yeah.
That's what it appears like. That's what I'm hearing in many of the other communities. You know, is that these problems and these challenges are it seems to be, you know, getting worse and far more serious. And like I said, I heard that's the message I heard from other DPW directors, other natural resources directors. It's a very serious, challenging problem. I think we're open. We're very interested. I am in terms of what more we can do to be helpful to you and our engineering department and our DPW department to get you the resources that you need to really help us better tackle this. So thank you.
Yeah.
Dorcas, do you have anything?
No.
Anybody else from the board?
No.
Thank you for making us confront the future.
I wanted to give a shout out to the DPW because I know that they've been doing a lot of work on culverts and retention ponds. So they're certainly on it to some degree, as much as they can. Of course, we didn't bring up the elephant in the room, Captain's Village, when we're talking about drainage issues. I wanted to getting back away from flash flooding and to the high water rise scenario and storm surge. Would people, if they have cesspools, if they have septic systems, are they going to be affected by the flooding?
They could be. We personally, my company has not done that work, but I think there are companies that do that work. But yeah, like groundwater, or if you have exposed septic systems, could definitely face some infiltration especially if you're along the coast and things like that.
Well, but most of these areas have town water, so theoretically, at least their water wouldn't be interrupted, and hopefully the electricity, if it doesn't go down in the wind from a storm, being elevated would continue. So, and I would just add to the flooding. My experience from having been flooded in a flash rainstorm 2 years ago, and flooding is not covered with your insurance, and I had to add a trough at the end of my driveway, which is pitched down towards the house, so that the rainwater that comes down the driveway would be caught and run off around the house instead of into the house. So those are the kinds of changes that I, for one, had to make to preserve my home. So yeah, we're at a stressful junction. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's very helpful, and I look forward to meeting again with you as you move forward in this process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Changing of the guard. Here comes Jeff.
Dun, dun, dun.
Talking about an elephant in the room. Let's talk about wastewater.
All right. Next up, we have our Water Resources Advisory Committee that's going to give us an update tonight. It's great. Thank you all for being here. Jeff, if you don't mind introducing
Certainly.
friends here at the table.
Yes, good evening. I'm Jeff Colby, the Public Works Director. I'm joined by Lori Rizala, the Water and Wastewater Superintendent, and we also have some of the Water Resource Advisory Committee here. We've got Spiro Mitrakakis, that's the chair, is here. He's going to have a couple of comments after we do our general wastewater update. That's a very similar format to what you've seen previously, but we've got some good information to update the board on. We also have two other members here, Mark Alkowski and John DeLiso is here as well from our Water Resource Advisory Committee. With that said, I will start with what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the groundwater discharge permit. We've had some ongoing discussions with DEP, and we want to update the board on those. We also have Contract 1, which is our water resource recovery facility. A lot of good work happening there, a lot of earthwork, a lot of active construction happening at 99 Buck Island Road for that project. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then contracts 2 through 6, the collection system contracts. We want to update the board on the status there. And then as we've typically done, we want to finish with wastewater communications, how people can get more information, how we're getting word out to the public. And that's probably a good point to transition to the Water Resource Advisory Committee and some comments they might have about the project and kind of updates on where we stand. So the groundwater discharge permit, just a reminder for those that might not know, but we did receive a permit from Mass DEP on August 5th of 2024 for 370,000 gallons per day. So that's a good start, but it is only a start. We still have a significant portion that we need to find additional recharge area for. And as we've talked about previously with the board, the focus is at Bayberry Hills Golf Course. We've had some good discussions with DEP about a concept for recharge there, which includes some amount of subsurface recharge, which would typically look like a leaching field under the driving range or leaching pits along some of the cart paths, things of that nature. They're also looking to do some parking lot improvements there, so we'll look if we can take advantage of that opportunity to put some leaching below the parking lots. We're looking at those options. We are encouraged with the discussions we've had with DEP to date, including one we just had this morning with our monthly meetings with them, that we can get another 1.5 million gallons per day at the Bayberry Hills site. So that's very close to what we need for phase 1, and we feel we can get the rest of what we need for phase 1 by getting DEP to acknowledge that we can do more with irrigation at Bayberry Hills. So we already do about 33 million gallons a year of irrigation, or we have a permit to do 33 million gallons a year of irrigation, and we're looking to do upwards of 70 million gallons a year with reclaimed water irrigation at Bayberry Hills. So it really is a great partnership. It's something the town should be very proud of. It's the only place in Massachusetts that has that level of reuse, water reuse happening at the golf course. It's something the golf course is very excited about. That means they would be pumping less water out of the ground, and that's good for everyone. They'd be able to reuse a product that we think is very valuable for them with this reuse of the treated effluent, highly treated effluent. So there's a lot of good things going on with our discussions with DEP. We have a relatively tight time frame with getting the rest of that flow permitted up at Bayberry Hills and then constructed. So our goal is to have the effluent recharge constructed at Bayberry Hills in time to be connecting people through phase 1. Again, we need to account for every connection. We do realize it will take time for people to connect along phase 1 once they're able to do so. But we're really trying our best to line up the timeframes of construction for when the treatment plant is completed, as well as when the construction for any recharge would happen at Bayberry Hills. So again, a very tight time frame because the permitting for something like that takes quite a while. We're working through that right now. Just to give a general idea where we think things stand, we're looking for the spring town meeting to be requesting additional design funds to complete the design for the recharge up at Bayberry Hills. We have some funds now in which to finish the planning and permitting and modeling and start that design process, but we will need some additional funds to complete the design up at Bayberry Hills for recharge. And then spring of 2027 is our target for construction funds, going to town meeting for construction funds for that particular facility. So that's what we're looking at as far as a rough schedule. We're still actively massaging that schedule, if you will, to try to see if we can accelerate it to, again, line up our construction timeframes with regard to what we have going on with Contract 1 and the treatment facility, and what we need to have done for construction up at Bayberry Hills for recharge purposes. I'll pause here before I leave this slide. There's a couple other things I wanted to touch on, but does the board have any questions? I thought I saw a question.
So the funding, even though this is for phase 1, has not been secured for this piece of the recharge? It's going to be separate?
For Bayberry Hills, right. If all goes well, we may have some of our contingency that we don't use from the $207 million that has already been appropriated. But even in the best case scenario, I don't believe that'll be sufficient for construction, for what we need for construction funds for recharge. It's not something we had anticipated at the beginning of this project.
Because I thought we had all the funding for what we needed for the first phase, so I guess that was just different. And my other question is about the way isn't there an issue with the way the DEP counts the water usage multiple times? At one point in time, we were talking about how DEP was counting the water, and it was...
I think what you're referring to, it is complicated, and the way they calculate recharge, or what a facility is permitted to recharge, there's peak day flows, so that's going to happen probably around the 4th of July or some really busy week. So we have to account for the ability to recharge at a peak day flow. There's also annual averages that are going to the calculation. So we haven't received a permit for Bayberry Hills from DEP yet. So we're still working through how they count how they're actually going to permit that for us. Are they going to base it upon an annual average or a weekly average? And we do also have to account for peak day flows. So there is a different way of calculating it based upon how you look at it. So there's different design components. I think that might be what you're referring to. It makes it much complicated to deal with DEP relative to permitting. Absolutely.
So even with that and the allowance that potentially that we're going to get, we're still going to need an additional site to be both designed and funded? We're not going to get everything we need at Bayberry, is what you're saying?
It looks like we can get everything we need at Bayberry for phase 1. Okay. That's what it looks like right now. But there are 7 more phases after this that I know the Water Resource Advisory Committee regularly contemplates and thinks about, and we need to start planning for. We don't have any of that recharge that's factored into what we're currently pursuing with DEP. We're really just trying to get enough for phase 1. Now, we feel strongly, and I think it's kind of alluded to in that first bullet on the screen here, is we feel strongly that once we have data and actual flows going to these systems, both that's being constructed currently at 99 Buck Island Road with open sand beds, as well as any recharge that gets constructed at Bayberry Hills. We feel strongly that we can demonstrate to DEP there's no adverse impacts to groundwater mounding or those types of things that they're concerned of with regard to sensitive receptors and wetlands and things like that. We feel strongly that we can get more flow permitted in the future through the construction that's being either happening right now or planned at Bayberry. But that is to be determined. Again, they're very conservative in their permitting, and when we approached this project,
this was the delay in the first place, right?
Getting a permit from them was the delay, yes.
So we're trying to move forward with what they're forcing us to do, which is the right thing to do, but still, and then they're the ones standing in our way. So it's constant frustration with...
Yeah. Madam Chair, if I can just add, I think you've captured the point, and that is that when we put together the plan and presented it to town meeting, the plan had already been approved by DEP. Nothing that we presented to the voters was a surprise to DEP or any other regulatory agency. They came in after we received the approvals, and we were ready to go ahead and start implementing this work. They proceeded by delaying approval of contracts. They took a series of steps that really dragged this project out. You're right. We've been in a hurry. We've been at least thought that the regulatory agencies wanted us to work at a brisk pace, but in many cases they were holding us back. And so this additional requirement is a relatively new requirement that DEP has thrown at us long after, we went through our approvals with them and went to town meeting. Now, what may be going on and what's motivating it, I don't know. I do know that we're learning more about, the aquifer and how it may be impacted in other areas. And I think DEP has just recently taken a much more aggressively conservative approach to these discharge permits. And like I said, we're not the only ones being put through the ringer like this. Virtually every other town on Cape Cod is finding itself struggling with the same challenges as we are. And DEP has heard from a lot of folks, including our legislative delegation, about the need to be a bit more aggressive and a bit more responsive to towns like Yarmouth. And that's one of the reasons why we were able to get the approval, back in August. So I'm glad to hear that we're at the state that we're at, because quite frankly, I thought, this would take a lot longer. So I think, unfortunately, with these delays, we're still making progress, which is good.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I just have to say my piece on that part of it, and I think what we believed at town meeting, what I personally believed at town meeting, and what the reality was different. So for that, I think it's one of the things that took me back, because we advocated in that last town meeting, at least I did personally, and I can only speak for myself, but my word is very important, and I was under the impression that the contracts had been issued, okay? And we spoke to our public about that, and that was not in fact the case. So I apologize for that, but we were under the impression that that was the situation that we were in at that time. And I need to say that, because it's bothered me for quite some time. It wasn't until sometime later that it was brought to our attention that in fact was not the case.
I understand. But with respect to the discharge permit, the reality is that this was a wrinkle that the DEP threw at us at the last minute, and we've had to struggle with it.
But I think the public has questioned our situation. We need to clear the air about what happened.
Well, I think this board has been abundantly clear on what's happened.
Okay. Well,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well said. There's lots of challenges in this regard, but we are making progress. The last thing I want to call your attention to on this slide is the next steps with regards to that recharge. We're in the process of permitting, and one of the steps with permitting with the recharge solutions that I mentioned previously at Bayberry Hills is do a pilot test. So that's scheduled for the fall. After the busy golf season is starting to wind down, we'll do some pilot testing for recharge purposes at Bayberry Hills. This is a map that's become familiar, I think, to a lot of you as well as the public. These are the 6 contracts that we have for wastewater. Contract 1, which I mentioned before, wanted to show a map so people can see visually where that is. That's 99 Buck Island Road. That's the treatment location. Bayberry Hills would be just off of the map. Here we probably should start to show that in future slides, given that we're talking about some activities happening there in the future as well. Contracts 2, 3, and 4 are in the process of wrapping up. Lori will talk a little bit more about that. We have some more information in a couple of slides, and contracts 5 and 6 will be starting this fall, and upcoming winter season is expected. But we have this map if we need to go back to it as we progress through the slides. And I'll turn this over to Lori to talk about the various contracts, starting with 1.
Okay, so contract 1 is the treatment plant. And as Jeff mentioned, it's at 99 Buck Island Road, which is the water department. So it's behind the water department. So there's a lot of activity there now. C.H. Nickerson is the contractor. They started in December with site work. This year, this is their schedule. It's 26 pages. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of pull out really good milestones for like everyone's understanding. So I just pulled out the picture here is the process building. So that's the building where actually not any treatment happens, but it's where the offices are, the lab. It has a garage, and then there's some piping below it. So that's kind of like the main building that people will know. So just looking at that building and kind of a schedule that people hopefully can visualize. The masonry, so the walls will start going up. So right now they're already starting the foundation work, which I'll show you after. But The walls will start to go up in February. The roof should be on by May. And then they'll start doing the plumbing and electrical inside, which will be happening in the July timeframe of next year, with everything kind of starting up and hopefully the building running around the February of 2027 timeframe. The last item there is SCADA startup, which is the SCADA system is the system that connects all the different pieces of equipment and controls everything. So once that's going, it really is a good sign that things are almost done. And that should be happening around June of 2027. They're required to have the plant substantially complete by September of 2027. So that's when it should be starting to be able to be put online. I just wanted to take an opportunity to kind of give people a little bit better idea of the scope of the plant. It's not just that one building that we showed the picture of. So I think you've seen this map before. So I wanted to run through what happens. So blue is for buildings, and then there'll be red squares, which are tanks. So when the waste comes in, it's going to go to that first square that's highlighted right now. That's the Headworks building. That's a two-story small building, but it's a two-story building with multiple pieces of specialized equipment that takes the big stuff out of the sewage. So grit and things that people flush that shouldn't be flushed, it comes out in that building. That's the really stinky building, so you don't want to go in that one. From there, it moves across under the process building, which I just talked about, and into those tanks, which are the SBR, the sequencing batch reactors. That's where the treatment takes place. And next to those is another tank, an equalization tank, where denitrification takes place. And that building, now highlighted, is the denitrification building. It just houses chemicals that are needed for denitrification. And from there, the clean water heads off to UV disinfection, and finally to the infiltration beds, or in the future to Bayberry Hills. The sludge, or the waste, solid waste product, moves over to that tank on the top. That's the waste tank. And then it's dried in that other building below, which is the where the belt filter presses to take some more water out. Finally, there's the odor control equipment. And then we're doing an addition over on the back of the water building for vehicle storage. So I just wanted to run through that quickly just to get an idea. It's not just one little building that we're building. It's 5 buildings and a lot of concrete in the form of tanks. So all this takes time. This is where we're at right now. Just took that picture the other day. What you're looking at there is they've driven sheeting, and I'm gonna just go move forward to see if this next one works. There's a, I'm gonna start it. There we go. So it's a time-lapse video of, and so this will look a lot better once we get above ground. But right now they're putting in the sheeting, which holds back, basically it's a big box. It holds back the sand, and they're able to pump out the water so that they can build the foundations for the buildings and the tankage. So you can see the sheeting being driven. It's all like they use vibration to drive it down into the ground, and you'll end up seeing the outline of the SBRs, and the part of the process building is forming there. There's actually 2 that are done in the back that you can't really see that have already happened, the solids handling building and one of the sewer pump stations on site. They've already done this shoring for that. Yeah, so that's the treatment plant, and where we're at with that. And that YouTube video is on the wastewater website. So if anyone wants to go, we're updated every 2 weeks, so you can see where we're at. So just moving on to the collection system contracts. We are in pretty good shape for contract 2, which is from Route 28 from Skull Island to the Bass River Bridge intersection and Old Main Street. All the work on Route 28 is done. That includes water and sewer and services for both. All that's left there is the final paving. And right now that crew, that's RBO, is working on Old Main Street and the Commercial Street area. And they also are building the pump station behind the Pancake Man. So you'll see work starting up more visually at the Pancake Man in the next couple of weeks. Contract 3 is the one that includes South Shore Drive and from Skull Island back to Pirates Cove, if we want to use mini golf courses, and South Shore Drive. They are also all done on Route 28, but also need to do final paving, which will be in the fall. They still have more work to do on South Shore Drive and some of the little side roads off of South Shore Drive, including some water main work, and then they also have a pump station on South Shore Drive. Contract 2, we'll just go back to contract 4, which is the small intersection at Bass River Bridge. That is complete, except for paving again on Route 28 in the fall. So we're making good progress on those 3 that are in operation already. Actually, I just wanted to go back real quick. This picture is the wet well for the pump station that's behind the Pancake Man. So that tank is about 30 feet tall, and it was installed a few weeks ago. So I just thought that was I have another picture of it too. I'll show you later.
Lori, is there a requirement, a final date required in those contracts?
Yes. Contract 3 is May 2026. And contract 2 is prior to that.
Yeah, a couple of months prior to that. So it's in the spring of this upcoming year.
Spring of
so
26.
They're wrapping up quickly.
So contract 4 is pretty much 100%. Again, I'm not counting the paving. Contract 3 is about 65%, and contract 2 is 90%, but they've actually done more in the last week, so it's higher than that at this point.
Lori, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's 65% for contract 3. When you say, they're significantly ahead, I can see it on 2 and 4 because the number, 90% and 100%. But when I look at contract 3, that's 65%.
Right.
To me, I'm thinking that's more like halfway done.
Well, it's kind of, my numbers are a little deceiving because I'm not counting the water work. I'm only looking at the sewer. So they're 100% on water work on Route 28. So they're further along than that number indicates. They are. They don't have a ton of work left on South Shore Drive. They have all the small side roads. 65% is probably not fair because I didn't include water.
But we're confident that they're going to reach the May goal?
They should be, at the rate they were going last year, they should be able to complete the work by May.
But everything's stopped right now.
There's no work going on
For that contract,
right now,
Go back to it. And
after Labor Day. Yeah. So contract 5, so moving forward, so contract 5 is from Parkers River to Higgins Scroll Road.
I'll hold my question.
This includes the pump station that will be at Parkers River Landing. So the low bid on this project was Diggett Construction, and this says we requested the authorization to award, but we actually received the authorization to award this week. And as long as we can get that contract signed in the next couple of weeks, we anticipate the work to start in about October of this year. And this, we would like to have the board, vote to award this contract. Is that what we're looking for?
Right, you have done that for the previous contracts. This one is the one that had to be rebid, and so these are new numbers and a new vendor. The numbers are shown here as the total bid price, $19,853,026.45 to Diggett Construction.
What was the old one that was already voted on?
That was about $750,000 less than this. This number would be consistent with that prior bid in that we added Neptune Lane, which is a section that's going to pick up some significant number of users for a relatively short section of pipe. And then also a portion of contract 3 was removed from Neptune Lane to the bridge to facilitate the crossing at the river. And if you add those pieces in there or account for those pieces, the bids are very consistent.
Within the program?
That's correct. And we have a 10% contingency for each one of the contracts, and it's well within the contingency for the additional amount.
Now, is this contract going to have pump station? Which pump station will this contract have?
It'll be for that Parkers River Landing site.
Pump Station 3.
Pump Station 3, we call it, yeah.
A question that I have on the on this is, when did we ask DEP to approve this? How long did it take for them to act on this one?
It took a couple of weeks, not more than 2, for once we had all the information in,
Yeah.
there's a large number of documents, and it seems like they add more each time we make a request. But once we had all of the documents in, it took them about 2 weeks to give us the authorization to award, so it wasn't too long.
That's pretty good compared to what we've experienced in the past. Yeah, now would like to, should we take this award up now? Should we be voting this now or at the end of the agenda item? Are there other things that we need to vote on?
This will be the only thing we need a vote from the board on.
I'm not sure we can vote on it based on our agenda.
Because this just talked about an update.
Okay, so we may,
Need to put that on, do you,
So it will go on for August 12th?
I don't know if that's enough.
That's our next
I mean,
meeting.
I don't know if with the timeline that's gonna work. You may have to do it, but nice if we had time to put it.
so because this was not on the agenda,
Well, it just says an update. I
Yeah.
don't see anything about a
so
contract.
we have to literally post this
Is
as
that-
part of our agenda item.
Does that screw up your timeline, though, with getting started? Or would that be okay?
It makes it tighter, but there is quite a bit of submittals and other documentation that needs to be dealt with. We probably wouldn't be looking to sign a contract before your next meeting, so I think we could make it work.
Put that on there.
Next meeting's July 12th, August 12th.
I'm sorry.
Right.
No, don't apologize, no. We, if the vote's not going to mean anything if it's not legal,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So,
So contract 6 is just the Route 28 from Higgins Quill Road back to the Barnstable Town Line. We did receive bids in September, and that is still on hold while we figure out the pump station number 2 situation. And the one thing I just want, on this picture, this is actually, again, the Pancake Man, I'm sure Pancake Man doesn't want to be associated with sewer, but the one behind the restaurant, this was prior to putting the tank in, and this is sheeting, so this is what's happening at the water resource recovery facility right now, only on a much smaller scale. So they drive the sheeting, they dig out the middle, even put a little excavator in there, and then they build from there. So in this case, they just dropped a prefab tank in there, but in the case of the treatment plant, it'll be forming concrete in place there. So people can see what's happening. Last is just wastewater communications. I think we mentioned, the last time we were here, we've been working closely with the police to get information out about detours. They've made excellent maps that they share on their social media and our social media. Right the last time we were here, Ryan Chase had just been hired. He's the assistant wastewater superintendent, and he has been out on the street since he got here, speaking with customers, handling any questions, complaints, any issues. He's out there dealing with those on a daily basis. He's been a great resource so far. And we have changed our protocol with, as far as posting construction updates. Now this graphic in the bottom corner, we're doing this on a weekly basis to kind of take the contractors' look-aheads and put them more into typical normal English that people understand. So each week you can look on that and see where everyone's going to be working. And it's across all the contracts in one update. Those are also put on the town website and shared with the Chamber of Commerce, who puts out an email every week to their constituents with the update. And as always, we update Waze daily with all road closures. So for the contracts that are coming up, we do want to make a couple of changes. We have always sent out a letter ahead of time to all abutters so that they can tell us where they want their sewer stub and know that the project is happening. So we will do that again, and we're adding more information to those letters from what we've learned for the last few contracts. And then in addition to that, Ryan is going to go door to door to every customer that's impacted with the letter and make sure they got it and make sure they understand what they need to do with it. So that will be, once we get contract 5 awarded and we know for sure the timing of it, he'll go out and start doing that and talk to every business along that stretch. We also increased the requirements and the specifications for contract 5 so that the contractor has more of a requirement to communicate to businesses and residents about what they're doing. In the past, Robert Hour's always been really good with communication, but other contractors have not been as good, so we want to make everyone kind of up to that higher standard. And then we will have a meeting with all the businesses that are impacted prior to the start of work. Again, once we know that the contract is awarded, we'll get that scheduled, and we'll work with the Chamber of Commerce to schedule that and make sure as many people as possible can make it. Always, if there's any questions, there's Ryan Chase's business card. You guys can call, anybody can call him anytime. You can call Jeff or I also, but Ryan is waiting for your call. So feel free to call him at any time. And then just finally, this is the same as last time. The best ways to kind of figure out what's going on with wastewater in Yarmouth is to follow the town of Yarmouth and Yarmouth Police on social media, and then you can check out our website, which is linked there, to see the weekly construction updates. You can check out the construction plans if you're the type of person that wants to do that, and to get some of the resident information. I think that is all I have.
Did you all want to ask more technical questions first, or?
No, we need to get to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at the agenda. I thought this was necessary sort of setup to
Absolutely.
get us to a point where we can have a more qualitative conversation. But let me preface that by saying that we've wanted to come before you for a little while now, and this seems to be the most appropriate time or point to do it, because we're about halfway through phase 1. And there's sort of a natural break in the construction process, and also a transition from the first couple of contracts to the next couple of contracts. And we've already gone through over a year's worth of construction now, so we have some lessons learned experience that it's probably worth putting to good use as we go forward. First, let me remind you, this is the Water Resources Advisory Committee. All we can do is advise you. We don't have any fiduciary authority to do anything other than be as helpful as possible to both you and the administration and the public. And in that, we consider ourselves intermediaries for that information. We spend the first Monday of every month at our public meetings, sitting down with the department heads and the consultants that we've hired to guide us through the process here, and get a whole lot of technical information. And we should be commending ourselves for putting together a group as proficient as we have. You see 3 representatives of it here today, but it's very well constructed in that we have lay people that represent the watersheds. There are 3 watershed districts in this project. There's some representatives on this committee that are also at large, so they're not necessarily there to advocate for the watershed issue. But it's sort of an interdisciplinary process as well, with representatives from the Finance Committee, the Board of Health, the Planning Board, and CONCOM. And it's very well attended. Almost everyone attends almost every meeting. So there's very good conversation and download of information with our consultants and with the department. So we are trying on your behalf to get to the crux of the matter, if you will, in a lot of these issues. We too faced your frustrations. We too asked the same questions that you are about to ask us. I was struck because I had listened into one of your meetings recently, some of the questions you were asking about wastewater, and these are exactly the kind of questions that we were asking 6 months or a year ago. And I'm sorry to be just catching up to you to answer those questions, but rest assured that we're doing that on your behalf and on behalf of the public as well. Those meetings are designed to be a place where that information can be transferred and then it could be made available to the public. They're open meetings. We set aside time in them to do public comment as a way to not make the public wait for an annual update or a biannual update, so anyone can attend these meetings. They're on Zoom. If anybody wanted to participate online, we made it very easy to jump in. But to date, not very many people have taken advantage of that. Some of you have attended those meetings, and you can gauge for yourself. It's kind of technical stuff.
When is it again, Spiro?
First Monday of the month, 4 o'clock at the DPW. That's our sort of standing meeting. It very rarely deviates from that unless it's a public holiday. But still, then, it's still a Monday. But to get to some of the things we wanted to impart on you tonight, as we're wrapping up contracts 2 and 3, contract 1 is going to keep going until everything will sort of dovetails together at the end. There's been a lot of concern and consternation in how some of that contract work has been conducted. By that I mean complaints from the public and from businesses and properties are affected. I think I can speak for the board that the town in its representation has handled it as much and as well as it could have. I spent a lot of time, and I'm sure like a lot of you do, talking to members of the public, and I always try to come up with analogies to sort of explain things, because if you get stuck trying to say consultant and DPW and contractor, and it's like we are building a new house, and at some point, most of us in our lives have built a new house, and we hired an architect to give us a design, and they used all their professional might to give us a really good design. But then he's still got to go to the building commissioner to get it approved and get a building permit and ultimately a occupancy permit. We just happen to be the homeowners. And in that scenario, we have a design. These guys, our consultants, use the best scientific models available to them to design our project. Unfortunately, to your point earlier, they ran into the building commissioner, Mass EPA, who kind of informed them that the regulations don't conform to some of those models. And now we have to do this other thing. The thing that they're holding up, it's going to hold not just us up, but every other town every other town on the Cape, is the discharge permit. What our models were telling us is we can discharge almost all of our phase 1 effluent into that one, the one site where the plant is. They're not going to let us do that. Now, the analogy I use for that is that today we have about 8,000 little straws poking into the ground with our septic systems, and we're dispersing our wastewater very broadly in 3 different watersheds, some near other bodies of water. We're trying to aggregate all of those eventually into this one giant fire hose in one spot. And MEPA, on behalf of the environmental laws and regulations, has concern about that. And they're trying to figure out how to accommodate the need with the requirements that they have in place. And it's subject to interpretation. So we're stuck at that point. That's what leads us to Bayberry, a secondary discharge site and a secondary part of that permitting process. And eventually the additional costs, which are always borne by the homeowner, no matter how much the architect and the building commissioner argue, when it's going to cost more, it's going to come back to the homeowner. And you got to go back to the spouse, and you got to crack out the checkbook, and you got to say, it's going to cost us a little bit more to get to a finished project. That's why I think we're coming to town meeting in the spring, and then subsequently to a future town meeting to fund whatever we happen to design to meet those additional requirements. It may seem as if we're being somewhat arbitrary. It's only that we happen to be first out of the gate. We were in a great position to launch our project before other towns and get to the monies that the state was making available to us to incentivize that, but we also are going to be the first to try to break through a brick wall and get some of the permits that everyone's going to end up struggling with this going forward. The differences between contracts 2 and 3 and 5 and 6. We started with the more intense half of Route 28, to lack of a better word. This is our year-round part of 28, the east side of Parkers River. It is where we, as residents, traffic to more frequently. For example, that's where our supermarkets are. So the type of trip making that's been happening there is going to be more, we're going to feel it more impactful to us because we're doing that all the time. There will be a difference with contracts 5 and 6, we believe, because the west side of Parkers River is more seasonal, and the business representation is more seasonal and not as year-round, and fewer, by the way. So that some of the concerns that had been and are being voiced currently may not materialize in the next phase. And by the way, it looks like 5 and 6 are being separated by half a year as well. Instead of like 2 and 3, they both start at the same time, 5 and 6 might be staggered. So having said that, there's going to be construction on Route 28 on both sides of Parkers River this fall, so gear up. We've learned some lessons around detouring and traffic mitigation that we'd like to apply to 5 and 6. The west side may tend to lend itself more to detouring because of the access to Buck Island Road. And we're trying to deal with some similar issues like how our drivers get to the two endpoints, Bass River being one, the Hyannistown line being the other. The west side of Parkers River is somewhat of a pass-through, but you can more easily get to your destination in Hyannis using Buck Island, Camp Street, Willow Street, for example. That's a little too much detail, but generally speaking, we kind of think we know how to do detours better going forward than we have been in the past. We're going to try to keep them out of the neighborhoods as much as possible, because that neighborhood in West Yarmouth, south of Route 28, is very densely populated, and even though it could offer a detour, you probably don't want to dump that much traffic into it. We'll see. But that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about at the RAC meetings going forward. Our concern remains that we've made ourselves available to public comment, public complaint, but they're not really taking advantage of it. And we'd like to make sure that that doesn't just end up on your desk. You should use us and charge us accordingly. You should ask us to go out and do these public meetings, even if they're not during our 1-hour meetings on Mondays. Schedule in the community or in the precincts meetings, whatever you think is appropriate. We did this back in the fall of 2020 before we went to town meeting in 2023 for approvals and had a series of 4 meetings. We thought were okay attended, some bet more than others. And by the way, we were very forthcoming in those meetings about the problems we were going to encounter here, mostly because some of us had experience with sewer projects in other locales. I remember saying specifically to some of the business owners at that meeting, you will be so impacted you are better off to be closed for a month than fight the construction outside your door. You will be impacted for the full 3-month period that construction is in your vicinity, and you should plan accordingly for a reduction of both sales, and you should consider reducing your staff if you have staff. But when it's not real when you just tell somebody that that's what's going to happen to you. And then in our case, not unlike the case in Chatham that I experienced, it happened. It's kind of the complaints that we're getting. Now, it doesn't help that some of the contractors are better suited to dealing with those issues than others. Lessons learned there as well. We were requested to expand, to allow the contractors to work beyond some of the timeout dates that are negotiated in the contracts, under the theory that the more they get to work, now that the weather still is complying, the shorter the project will be at the back end. We're kind of discovering that that's not true either. All projects tend to run to their end date. So going forward, we might want to take a timeout in the winter when the weather's not really conducive for construction. This is, by the way, not something that these guys are signing off on yet. It's just a recommendation from our side. I likened it to undergoing chemotherapy. you got to take a break. You just can't keep doing chemotherapy for 6 months. They do it in flights. So we might not need to give our property owners, businesses on Route 28, a break, and say, here's a month or two where we're not working in this period of time between the two summers that allows you to catch your breath and catch up, so that the complaints that we're hearing was mostly because this is such a long and continuous process. Bifurcating it, truncating it might be a way to deal with it. So all I'm suggesting is we're available for you to ask us questions and ask us how best to deal with these issues. We're available to the public for the same. Use us as you see best. We're 8 people really committed to this project. We have a lot of information from having worked with the staff and the consultants. It's not fair that that we would want to dump it all on everybody all the time, so it kind of resides with us. But please feel free to ask whatever you want to ask.
Well, thank you. We are a team, so we all have pieces that we can play in this. And while we may get into the specific details or frustrations, it's no way a reflection of anything that anybody has done specifically. The town has worked really hard, as you've mentioned. We're learning lessons, and we're doing the best we can. But this is the biggest undertaking of a project that this community has ever seen. So, we always ask for patience, but we do understand that it's, to some people, it's not, it's real. It's real financial. It's hurting them financially. Other than it being an inconvenience for many people, it's a hard environment, right? You're there, you're available, right? But you see it on Facebook because people go out there and unfortunately, put a lot of their frustrations out in public, and but to some extent they don't know where to go. So we do have to do a better job communicating. I'm happy to hear that they're going to be going door to door. I think that that's going to be helpful. I think another thing that's going to be helpful is having the same contractor next to each other. So like Diggett and 5 and 6 will probably be helpful because they'll be using the same team of flaggers instead of having different, maybe they can communicate more amongst each other. But Spiro, I very much appreciate your comments. I know you had the ability to listen to us, and with our goal-setting symposium we had, we talked a lot about our frustration with communicating with people and how we can better communicate. Has your committee had any specific thoughts on where or how we can better do that, or how maybe your committee can help our communications team?
I'm going to check with the behind me first, if they want to take the question.
I would say, it's a learning experience.
I'm sorry, if you can just speak to so people at home can hear you. Thank you.
What I wanted to say, it's a learning experience.
You just have to identify yourself, Mark.
I'm sorry, Mark Galkowski, member of the committee. So, getting information out, signage, and I think that improved, especially in the latter part of this contract 3 as they move down towards South Shore Drive. Better signage. I think the folks on sites, the flaggers and whoever's there, needs to be able to direct people to where they want to go, or they go, they can't go through, they've got to go around, that type of thing. So that's the communications part that I see.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. I think that's definitely one of the things that we talked about, and perhaps coming up with, and I know this was my idea of coming up with a map. Unfortunately, people will avoid the area altogether, right? Which we can't really do much about. However, the people that are working there need to be very knowledgeable about how each place is accessed. And I think that's one thing I think the town could do better with, giving maybe literature or something to each of the flaggers and each property outlined on how it can be accessed. Because one of the things that we've said from the beginning, which wasn't necessarily always true, because there were points in time where some businesses had to shut down for a short period of time, and I think we tried to communicate that. But our motto really has been is we're open for business, right? And so we need every person that is participating in this to understand that that's very important. So, you know, the people that are turning people away, you can't go this way, road's closed, that's not good enough, you know? We complained for years about communicating with the business community, with the building department. We made so much progress because it used to be like, no, we can't do that permit, but tell me how I can get it, right? And we've made progress on that, and that's what we need to transfer that type of attitude towards making sure the contractors and the flaggers are working with us to accommodate the drivers, being, you know, receptive to helping them, and I know a lot of them are. I mean, I've seen it every day. I'm not trying to be overly critical, but there's some that could do a better job in making sure that, like, listen, if you want to go here, here's how you do it. You got to take the time. We need them to work with us, and if we can make it easier for them to just highlight something and hand it to them, maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know.
I'm not sure there's a great answer. I think every community struggles with this type of thing. We have, in essence, two constituents confronting flagmen and police details. And they're both looking at two different outcomes. One wants to get through or around that as quickly as possible, and one wants to get to their destination in the middle of all of it. And as a flagger, you're asked to sort of do both things at the same time. I get frustrated because I'd like to know the detour before I'm stuck in the traffic, right? And to be honest, we're really kind of bad at detours. The only consolation is the town of Barnstable is worse. So if you ever try to get through Barnstable during their construction projects, they have the same complaints on their side of the fence as well. But if you do a really good job of detouring folks before they hit the site of construction, then you've prevented some people from getting to their destination, which would have been a place of business or some other property in the vicinity of that construction. So it's I guess it's an art more than anything else, and you do need good people. And we noticed that there was a difference between contractors and how that was handled. Some of the folks who are local and have local employees working on the project probably better at it than the folks who come from someplace else and are stuck basically waving people forward or stopping them. So I'm not sure how to do that better, although we all got to try harder. Ryan coming on board, I think, was extremely beneficial to the property owners and business owners, because now you actually have a real person you can talk to. Our phone numbers are published and available. Our web email addresses are available as well. I mean, that's not an immediate thing, but if you're going to be dealing with that problem for a period of time, at least you can get an answer within a day. Like I said, we learned that lesson in this first half of the phase one. Maybe we'll do a better job, hopefully, in the second half.
Mark?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I just want to thank you, Spiro, and the members of your committee, everybody on the committee, for the work that you do. I have, from time to time, dropped in on your meetings, and you folks do a great job. You're not afraid to ask the consultants or our people the tough questions. What's great for us is to have you there doing what you're doing, because you're asking all the right questions. I also want to commend you and your committee for the way in which you treat the members of the public. We've had some citizens come to some of your meetings, and they've had some issues and concerns, and you folks have handled all of that extraordinarily well. And in fact, I can't believe the extent to which you've extended yourselves and made yourselves available to help constituents. You've done a great job. You really have. It's the benchmark for community relations. It's a high standard. So thank you for all of that.
Are you asking me out on a date? What are we doing?
No, I'm not. Sorry. I didn't mean to give you that impression. I apologize. What I'd like to do is just for a moment, Madam Chair, is just rather than look back, look ahead. All right? Because we're going to need your help at some point as we begin to figure out how we tackle Phase 2. You know that many of us are keeping a very close eye on budgets and funding and calling on our legislators to make sure that, commitments that we're counting on, are carried through in terms of funding and support. And that's going to be an ongoing issue. And that's one of the things that concerns me is that, I think with all of these projects, we've kind of been expecting a certain level of federal and state support. And to the extent to which the feds are unable to do that and the state is unable to step up, then I think it puts more of a burden on our communities. From my point of view, if the state and the feds are not going to hold up their end of the bargain, I honestly believe as a community we have to reassess our end of the bargain, because these are massively expensive, unfunded mandates by the federal and state government, well over $5 billion in mandated expenses here in the Cape. And I think that we may be forced to take some very painful decisions. My hope is that we can get through Phase 1, get that behind us, and move forward from there and begin to think realistically about how we might approach future phases, particularly if the feds and the state, we're going to have to come up with a brand new game plan if the feds and the state somehow drop the ball, their end of the bargain. But having said that, there are other things that are going on that we should also be spending some time and energy on, and that is I'm intrigued with where Yarmouth fits in with respect to the Cape Cod Commission's freshwater initiative, this whole initiative focusing on helping communities improve the quality of their ponds, lakes, streams, and so forth. And I think one of the areas where I know this board member could certainly welcome your advice and your guidance is, how Yarmouth should participate and how we should approach that. How can we take advantage of the technical assistance and the other resources that are being made available by the Commission to help towns tackle and improve water quality in other areas. So I've always wondered, as we go through the phasing of this, as we learn more about the water quality of our ponds, do we need to take a step back and maybe look at prioritizing the watersheds of other areas? That's always been a concern of mine, because we may find that, there's some water quality issues related to some of our ponds and some of our other waterways that may deserve us to take another look at and maybe say, maybe that shouldn't be Phase 8, but maybe that should be Phase 5 or Phase 4 or even earlier. So I think those are some things that I think, as we look ahead, I think would be incredibly beneficial. I would, and it's within your charge. I was the appointments chair when and drafted the original charge that was approved by this board. I'm glad you like how we structured your committee. So I appreciate that.
It's important, especially for the reason you just mentioned, if I can interrupt you.
Go right ahead.
You just identified the missing piece of information that we're going to need to move forward to future phases. Because of the cost considerations that we're encountering now and the lack of funding or additional funding that we may have been able to rely on, we're going to have to find more valuable or impactful nitrogen to mitigate, to make it worth the cost of mitigating it. In other words, you can't just start hooking up houses in phases 2, 3, and 4. You can't just start hooking up customers to make the thing work financially. We're going to have to balance it with where are the most critical TDMLs, nitrogen, to be removed And the answer to that question is going to be partially derived from the information that we get from the work the commission's doing or the technical expertise that they're going to be making themselves available to give. So that you're correct, we can't just sort of say, well, who's next? Well, who's next might change based on that analysis.
Well, the reason why I put that on the calendar is that's really something that we need your committee
Right.
to really look at. Are there other areas? Let's face it, we're learning, every day something new about water quality, and there may be issues that in the development of the original phasing of the program, maybe there's some things that need to be revisited. I understand that comes with some other implications. It should not be taken lightly. But I'm saying, I think my recommendation would be, as the first step is to really look at this freshwater initiative and start there with an assessment as to how their studies, how their findings impact Yarmouth. Have they identified areas where there are water quality issues that we hadn't really taken into consideration or we're not aware of? I find that maybe hard to believe, but maybe, let's take a fresh look and an objective look at it all. But I think your committee is well positioned, just given, the talent. And again, I'm not asking anybody out for a date, but given the talent of the group and the resources and the expertise.
Blushing, Mark. He's blushing.
He is.
Yeah,
My wife is watching.
but just given the talent and the resources of the group, I think you're in the best position to at least highlight some things that might provoke some additional analysis or thinking. So I just want to put that out there. We talked about it at our select board goals discussion, when we met as a group, and to talk about, because that gave us a chance to talk about a lot of big picture stuff. And this was one of the items that we put out there as something that we need to really start paying attention to. So,
Well, thanks for reminding us that is within our purview, so we can pursue it. Probably be dealt with in much greater detail in future meetings. Obviously, we've got to wrap our arms around it. But it will be the spring of 27 before we know it.
well, let me just say, I did speak to the director of the Cape Cod Commission, because I interact with her periodically, and I did recommend that she come to Yarmouth and be prepared to make a presentation to some interested officials in the town of Yarmouth. So I've already broken the ice there, so
Fair enough.
feel free to pursue that.
Thank you. Along with the consideration that we may give to protecting some of our surface waters in this process, we also have to look at sort of our partnerships and going forward. Our watersheds, 2 of our 3 watersheds are shared with neighboring towns, and we're going to have to start coordinating our future phases to be more in sync with what they're planning and when they're planning it as well. The analogy I use for that is it would not help the situation much if both of us were peeing into Bass River and only one of us stopped peeing. Bass River would still be a problem. So we need to sort of talk to them about how we go forward together in that watershed, and similarly with Barnstable and Lewis Bay when the time comes. It's a long process. This committee is going to be around for a long time, I think. But the scope of the project will not allow any of us to be here at the end of the project. So we're going to have to sort of set this up in such a way that the work continues, even as...
Well, we've also talked about this as a board, about the need to interact with the other boards, particularly Barnstable, because there's more than just wastewater and water quality that we have in common with them. We do, like Dennis, we have to work on a watershed permit, but we also have their erosion, their dredging, their whole range of other issues. And we have talked about, with this board, the need to engage Barnstable officials more directly on this. So this has come up before, so I appreciate your reinforcing that.
The only thing I wanted to be able to take away from this meeting was that your interest and willingness to allow us to have a public session at some point. Now we have an end date. We'd like to do it before Springtown meeting, so that as a community, if they would like to come talk to us, ask us questions, complain to us. If nothing else, just take information that we have to give them in anticipation that we're going to be at town meeting again talking about this. And it's hard to ask people for money if they don't know what it's for.
We'll get to that discussion after Dorcas.
You guys are doing a really fantastic job in a very difficult situation. But as we all know, there are always some things that perhaps could be done, a little differently, tweak it here, tweak it there. And some of the areas, as we're getting ready to go on to this next phase of the other end of 28, you explained to me, Spiro, I talked about, one of the things I hear a lot from people is, why is it that they're digging up every day and then they're putting the tar back down again? It looks like all they're doing is redoing the same area. Why don't they just put plates out there or something, so that instead of tearing it up and putting it back and so forth, it could move a little better? And they use as an example Winslow Gray. Why is it that it seems that when they were doing Winslow Gray, which was not a state road, and they were able to use the plates instead of ripping up, it seemed to go faster than it did when you did the other area. Communication, again, trying to explain that. And before you get into that, I'll just give you a couple more. I sit here wearing my school bus driver hat. And one thing that's going to happen every day is the kids have to get to school. No matter where your detours are or what's going on, somehow the kids have to get to school. And a 40-foot, 2-ton bus is going to have to get to wherever you're detouring them to. And so I think we could do a better job before we start the next phase with incorporating conversations and going on directly between the bus company, the school department, and the contractors about making sure we have that. Because I could hear over the radio, for instance, well, yesterday I picked Susie up at such and such, but now I've got a flagger that tells me I can't do that. Or the flagger sent me down this, and now would you send the police department, because I need help being able to back the bus up to be able to go through. And that was literally on a day-to-day basis. And yet Johnny hasn't moved from where he lived. He still has to get there. And maybe there are physically no ways to get to Johnny that particular day, so that they need to be notified that the parent needs to make arrangements to get the child to point C instead of being picked up at point A. So communication, a chance to have Ryan come to our meetings so that we can see his face on TV, people can see what he looks like. I personally, I was a little surprised he didn't come tonight, so that we have an opportunity to see him. I'm sure there's a good reason.
There's a video. He's done a couple of videos.
But, and unfortunately, Lori, in some ways, people need to be spoon-fed. Yes, we have a video here, or we have something, but there's something else that goes on. So speaking to that, you talk about the businesses that are affected, but what also gets really affected are those neighborhoods that the detours are coming through. And I think sometimes there may not have been some discussions that went on. There could be special needs children in that area. There could be, heaven only knows what's going on. I'll give you an example. Swan Lake Road, they talked about the fact that everybody had homemade signs that they started putting out along the road because people were going at like 40 miles an hour down this road that has little ones living there and playing. The idea of going out to the neighborhood associations, one of the good things that coming up for this next level that we have of doing the West Yarmouth area is you have some very organized civic associations there. So having that face-to-face. I know they're invited to come to you on the first Monday to your meetings, but how much better if you're going to Mr. Jones's house and sitting in their living room with, 40 of the neighbors to talk about what's going on, and they can get down to what specifically are their issues. I think sometimes if we could just reach out and help with that communication, I think it would make a big difference. As Tracy was talking about, having the flaggers, it's not their fault that they don't happen to know Yarmouth, that they're here from Orleans directing the traffic, but if they, where do you want to go? Oh, you want to go to, Mid-Cape Appliance. Well, here's a sheet to help you with, the different possibilities of how you could get there. I think would be very beneficial. I question whether or not, in the long run, we may have to look at having a facilitator over and above Ryan to be able to assist us with all of this. People that have the expertise in traffic and detouring and, the day-to-day things that can come up, that it might just help to make the flow a little bit better. And yes, as Mark talks about, this was not something that was in our original plan, and we may, as a board, for instance, have to look at how can we go to assist with that. I mean, that opens up a whole nother big conversation. But a facilitator, if you think about it, how helpful that would be. You're performing a yeoman's job. But if we had a professional that knew that, well, when you're looking at this area, if you detoured it this way, you'd be saving time, or, there aren't as many complications than if you detoured it that way. That kind of thing. And in the case of I'll speak directly to Ryan and try to put him together with our bus company and the school department to see what we can do, because even though that's more of a seasonal business area, there are still people that live there all year round. They're going to still have to get to school every day. So how we can help with that. But these are some of the things, people are saying to me things like, I've sold my motorcycle because I don't want to keep it anymore. I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt if I try, driving down 28. So I've just decided to sell my motorcycle and wait until all of the,
Teeth will fall out.
Yeah, until, they feel about the unevenness of the road and so forth. So, again, everything that we do, unfortunately, you have to think of how we could do even more to get it done, because, as I say, we all are so busy and all focused on just our one little area that sometimes we have to kind of cut into their, to their location, like going to the neighborhood association or going directly to the company. So having, like, Ryan go out and speak to all the businesses, I think is excellent, that one-on-one. Because then when they're sitting there, and when he's sitting there and they're in their location, talking to them, and they can look around and say, oh, I didn't think about, but now that's going to bring out, I think, an awful lot and help. And I think, Spiros, when you were saying the fact that so many of these businesses are more the seasonal businesses than the year-round businesses that we have, that's going to make it a little bit easier too. But I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off in all different directions, but.
No, I'd like to answer your question because many people see the same thing and are asking themselves the same question. Since I got the answer from Jeff, I'm going to ask him to answer the question. Why don't we use steel plates, particularly on Route 28? We'll see if the answer was the same.
There you go.
Well, I think it's more than perceived better or quicker progress with the plates, as well as with not having to do daily paving. But the short answer is that's Mass DOT's road. They required it. We pushed hard to try to change that, and they refused. We'll continue to try to work with them, and new contracts are a new permit, so it's another opportunity to revisit that, because you have to revisit every one of their conditions with every permit. So we'll continue to work on that. But one of the real challenges we've had has been dealing with Mass DOT. They are set in their ways, and they will only allow certain things.
Yeah, they don't want to have open holes, I suppose, overnight. And I think the contractors have done well to arrange their work incrementally so that they don't leave open holes that you would have otherwise maybe put a steel plate over. So it hasn't really retarded the work or the progress of the work. But in some cases, the plate is much smoother than the paved patch, right?
Well, and there, I guess I'd be saying, well, should you be coming back to us, and should we be calling for our legislators to sit here in front of us and explain to them that we need them to start getting word out at the state level that maybe you need to change. Maybe you need to change it a little bit for this. This is a special circumstance, and in this area, you know what? We're going to let you use the steel plates. You know, like the more the squeakier the wheel gets, the quicker the grease is going to get to it. So,
Jeff, how much money would we have saved in asphalt over the cost of a project? I mean, granted, they'd still have to pave at the end, but it would be, I'd venture to say,
a lot of money.
millions.
Well, in the hundreds of thousands for sure, yeah.
Oh, I think that's a letter.
I think it's more than a letter. I think it's getting the state legislators here and say, I mean,
Yeah, because we're just the canary in the coal mine.
right.
They need to pay attention.
I'm set. I'm set. I'm sorry. I'll keep quiet.
Well, it's a huge project, and I really appreciate all the work you've done on it. I do worry about our ability to afford future phases, and I guess we all do. And Spiro's analogy sort of helped with that. The reason that we feel stressed about this is we're living in the house while it's being built.
On top
Of course.
everything else,
How is that not stressful? I hope that we'll be able to be of help to you. I mean, you are doing all you can, and I think any idea about having Ryan and perhaps Spiro's committee do outreach events, I think that would be much appreciated. That would be great. So thank you all.
Liz?
I would note that I spoke with a couple of people who come to my office hours, and it's always a bone, they can complain to me, but I had somebody who came this last week, and I would like to pass on what she said, because I think it will shed some light. She said Ryan Chase is a great listener, but he was not in any way able to solve her problems. She had trucks in her driveway. Her driveway now is messed up. It needs repair. Who's going to do that? Where does she go for the big trucks that have torn apart the apron of her driveway?
That's probably in the road layout, though. That's some of the information that people have to understand.
Well, then who tells them?
Well, Ryan is a good point of contact for that. He's actually maintaining a
So-
punch list for us. So she might not see an immediate change the next day, but it's on our punch list, or it will be if they contact us. And the way these contracts are structured is they have to finish the punch list before they get their final paycheck, if you will. There's a retainage 5% that's typically withheld until all items are corrected. So the communication that we've had with the public, and there has been unfortunately some areas of damage to lawns, driveways, irrigation systems, things like that. If it's not immediately corrected, in some cases it is, depending on what the circumstances are, but if it's not immediately corrected, we add it to the punch list, and it will get corrected before the project is done.
Okay, but my point was that she couldn't find that information. She was not given that information. Sounds like Ryan knows that. I don't know why he didn't tell her that, but they had a toilet slide off of its pedestal in one of the houses because of the vibrations. The earthquakes are it's like an earthquake all day long. Dishes fell off the shelves. And so they find that they can complain to Ryan, but they can't find out how it will be fixed, is what I'm getting back. And maybe it's because he's not in a position to make any comments like that. I don't know. I'm just passing it on. And I think, so, but the other thing I would wonder when you're talking about prioritizing contracts and so on, we were talking today about Route 28 and the flooding that we can anticipate with sea level rise and so on. And the south side of Route 28, and especially maybe Main Street, where people they have antiquated septic systems, and when we do have a potential flood, those cesspools may be compromised. Should that give those tie-ins priority? You know what I'm saying? Spiro does. He shook his head. And then the other thing I would say is, could whoever is going to be the ombudsman, and I think it takes more than just Ryan Chase, could they visit during construction? So they're going around now in anticipation, but it sounds like that visits maybe need to be during construction.
He does that as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then, when are the tie-ins for contracts 2 and 3 going to be happening?
Well, the treatment facility has to be constructed and up and running, so that end of 27, early 28 timeframe is the best estimate we have at this point. You know, again, when contract 1 is completed, that's the critical path.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I wonder why you said the west side of Parker's River, which is contracts 5 and 6, and then also the east side of Parker's River this fall? Why would we be going back to east side?
They're just finishing up.
Oh, just the repaving?
Just the
repaving.
patching.
Okay.
Right, I mean, there'll be some disruption. It won't be, putting pipes in the ground as much as
Right.
resurfacing.
Okay.
But if you're traveling on Route 28, you're going to see
Construction.
disruption at least.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you live it every day. You hear the people like we do. I know we all have work to do. However we can help, whatever plan. I know Bob, in our goals, that was one of the things. So he's going to be working with you to try to come up with better communication plans for future and so on and so forth. So I personally, if we're asking about outreach, my answer is yes. I think information is always important. I don't know if we need to pull the board. I heard from some of them. You can't go wrong with communicating, but we need to make sure that you have the accurate information to convey. So, sending you out there if you don't have all the information, I'm not sure is helpful either. So you're going to have to work with, town staff to hopefully you get some support there that has some detailed information in addition to the information that you guys all have. If not, we get back to them, but I'm very much in favor of always communicating. To Dorcas's point, the paving, it was a question I asked months ago, because I knew they were patching for the summer, and then would be back in the fall. I'd love to know what the standard is, because the state must have some standard in terms of the way that it's allowed to have been left in temporary status. I'm surprised that what's there is allowed, to be perfectly honest. But all I can say is, I know it's a work in progress. I'm not trying to be negative. I do think it's extremely important that we work to get it right, because if we don't, I have a hard time believing that the program will move forward. And so that's a real risk. It's a real risk that we need to make sure that our community understands all of what we're struggling with, and that we're working towards it, and that hopefully they will be patient with us while we get it right, and that they will support future programs going forward, because not only the funding, it's just the support of the people after some of the struggles that they've had. Granted, we won't be, we'll be off our biggest commercial district, and we took a risk by doing that, because it's interesting, because it was the business community who wanted us to put them first. And some people they don't want to be in the septic business. They were very happy to have sewer, and unfortunately it comes with some growing pains. And we're trying to create an atmosphere in the long run that will be better for them, and I hope that they can stay focused on that, and we can help them to that point. But we really need to be cognizant of the future of the program overall. So, but I really very much appreciate you guys coming.
Wait, there's one member of the public, I don't know.
Would you like to speak, ma'am? If you could,
You'll have to go on mic.
but we can hear you, but the people at home can't.
My name is Sue Cameron, and I live on Fessenden Street. And I actually came here with a question about Phase 2. So maybe I'll just chat with Lori or somebody afterwards. I'm just wanting to know when the design plans for Phase 2 will be set in place. Doing some landscape work, and I want to know, is it going to come in my front yard or my backyard? Because I'm on a corner. So anyway, but I'll find out from somebody here. And definitely a public meeting at the, senior center or something like that is always welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to make comments? You speak for many people. I think, as you heard in our conversation tonight, we're interested in Phase 2 too. So, it took years of planning to get to where we are, and I don't even know when that will start, the funding for that, how we're going to pay for it. It was years and years of planning to figure out the funding here, and with so much state and federal, as Mark has pointed out, uncertainty, it even makes it more difficult for us. So, but anyway, if nobody else has anything else, I thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is a great conversation for people to hear.
Madam Chair, may I address something that came up earlier in the meeting? I was unable to answer your question about whether the chair of the Recreation Committee had interviewed Alan Harrison, and that was partly because I've never met the chair of the Recreation Committee. But then I looked, and the head of the Recreation Committee was a no-show last Tuesday for my meeting with Alan Harrison. So I don't know, but I will call and find out.
Thank you, Joyce.
Then I will know the person's name, too, which is no small.
That would be wonderful.
Steve Sozansky, by the way, is the chairman.
All right. Sometimes you don't even know how that happened. If he knew about it in the beginning, or if he couldn't make it and it wasn't conveyed.
Yeah.
Who knows? I know. It's tough sometimes. All right, so moving along, we've got a lot of our agenda out of the way, but we need to discuss the consent agenda. There were some questions about the consent agenda, and I know we need.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. My dog is texting me.
Your dog is texting you?
My dog is texting me.
Sorry.
Your dog is gifted.
Wow.
She's with a sitter, and the sitter is like,
So there were questions about the estate of Linda Simon that we had asked, and Bob gave us a brief update, but if Bob could speak to the donation of $200,000 for us to better understand what the strings attached to that are, and yes, and whether or not it's going to be able to be used for a new facility, or what it means specifically for, just for the public to know, on our consent agenda tonight, there is a very gracious and wonderful donation to the town libraries, but specifically to the South Yarmouth Library, in the amount of $200,000 from the estate of Linda B. Simon, which we're extremely grateful for. And, the donation talks specifically about benefiting the South Yarmouth Library, and many of you know that we have entered into a process for potentially building a new South Yarmouth Library. And so a lot of us on the board just, I guess, have questions about where that leaves this money, and whether or not it'll be able to be utilized for the new library. Won't technically, it'll be in South Yarmouth, so I'm not sure how that works. But if we could just get the intent from the estate, that would be helpful, and whether or not the it says on our packet here that the funds will be used at the discretion of the library director, Jane Kane. Well, Jane's, I don't know if that's just a standard thing that's written, but Jane's retired, and I wondered if you had heard from them in terms of what this will be utilized for.
Well, first of all, it's a new donation, and the financial policies require, before we even take the funds and the custody of them, and they're properly invested, it comes in front of the select board for vote to accept the donation. Now, I just want to make it clear, it says right in here, these funds are to be used for the benefit of the South Yarmouth Library, and I think you've eloquently described that the town is developing plans for a new modernized library that would be located in South Yarmouth. So I think that the first thing I'd like to recommend is that you vote to accept the donation, and then we can make sure that the funds are properly deposited and invested, you know, in interest-bearing accounts. And then what I'd like to do is to be able to contact, this was excellent that it comes from a law firm representing the estate, and I'd like to share the town's plans for a new library in South Yarmouth. And, you know, there may be, I would point out that everyone knows Linda B. Simon was a member of the library trustees for many years, has tons of experience in volunteering to help our local libraries, and it may very well be that through this project, there's the ability to facilitate some type of recognition, you know, for such a generous donation. But that would be the next step of this process, is to directly involve the representatives of the estate with the town's plans, and then see if we can clarify some of the issues that were in the letter. Just going by the letter, I would, you know, say that they were very specific in South Yarmouth Library. So I think it needs a little more discussion, and hopefully we can clarify that intent, and then we'll bring that back in front of the board. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to not accept the donation and hold the whole thing up. We want to get the funds properly in the place where they need to be, and then discuss the, you know, the final use.
May I move that we approve the consent agenda?
Sure. Does anybody have any discussion or questions on that?
I second the
Comfortable?
motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, perfect. All right, Town Administrator.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll try to be quick. That was a great update for the wastewater. These are the things we're living every single day. A few items on Town Administrator updates. First, I want to give you an update on recruitment, and the first part of that is to call to attention the letter that I provided today, dated July 22, and it is with respect to my appointment of an assistant town administrator. And I just want to say that this is an absolute moment for celebration. I could not be happier with the process as it's unfolded for the assistant town administrator position. I mean, it starts off with, at a time when, you know, we can't get candidates for so many of our town positions. We had 45 candidates for this particular position, extremely high-quality candidates. I mean, what a stacked field. And we've been able to select Amy Frigiletti, who is one of the premier assistant town administrators in the Commonwealth, over 21 years of experience, master's degree. Some premier towns, was the assistant in the town of Wellesley, is currently the assistant in the town of Franklin, and which is, you know, another just town that is very well financed, a little bit larger than ours. And, you know, because of her situation now, she's been commuting, you know, from the Cape for a distance, and, you know, was open to considering, you know, this position, and has accepted this. So absolutely delighted, and as I say, I just talked to her last week, and she's very happy about it as well, and has, you know, signed her offer letter. And so what we hope to do is, the actual charter provision is in my letter to you, and it does have the 21-day period. And what we hope to do, and it won't impact our schedule at all, is to put this on the agenda for the August 12th, which, you know, hopefully it would be a great opportunity to show some support and approve this. But of course, you know, in that time frame, you could still reject it by a 4/5 vote. That's in the charter as well. But we're going to have Amy on hand and bring her in here, introduce you to her. And, you know, in addition to her qualifications with her maturity and poise, she is going to be you know, I think very well liked by the residents of the town. She's going to be appreciated by, you know, her experience working with key department heads in big towns on big projects is really great. And I think you folks are going to love her. You're going to work directly with her on a ton of things. And so I couldn't be more happy there. Now, we've got another couple of recruitments I've been spending a lot of time on, making sure that we get squared away. I want to mention the library director, which I participated personally and very strongly. We've completed our 2 interviews, and I do want to acknowledge, too, that for all of these major recruitments for, you know, the division and department heads, while, you know, I can do all of this, you know, work and evaluate these things on my own, I'm a very collaborative person, and I invariably involve my panels and teams. And I had a great panel on the assistant town administrator, and I want to acknowledge I had Jeff Colby sat in on my panel, and Jennifer Mullen, finance director, Sarah O'Reilly, human resources, and we were all, you know, we're just blown away by the whole field and unanimous in our selection. On the library director, I had a panel, and in my second round of interviews, I pulled in 5 people from the libraries, including George Bobino representing the library trustees. I had Jane Kane helping, and I also had 3 staff members, including our acting director, that helped as well. And so right now, I'm just getting the final impressions from the staff members that I asked to sit in, and I've got it down. We have 2 very solid candidates, and I have to make a recommendation to appoint. I have to appoint one of those 2 candidates, which I hope to do by the end of the week. We're ready to roll on that. We've, like I say, conducted a couple of different interviews. So libraries coming real quick.
Can I stop you just one sec?
Yes.
Who's our acting director?
Phoebe Aitchison.
Yeah.
Phoebe, okay.
Yeah.
And she's
great.
highly skilled.
Yeah,
She's
she'll do a
kind of
great job.
new, you know, didn't have the comfort level to jump into that director spot, but I'm hoping to maybe,
She'll be
you know, I
great.
got my eye on her for future succession planning.
Can I say something about the assistant? I just looked at the resume. She's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, she is.
You're going to love her.
No, I read website, marketing, branding, geez, all the things that we've had some interest in. Project management, her experience. No, there's a lot of tremendous candidate for the position, and her experience is outstanding. You know,
I was talking about, too, when you were out, in addition to the qualifications, I think you'll be impressed with her poise, maturity, the way she carries herself and works with people. It's going to, you know, be one of my bring people into the tent type. I think it'll be good for us.
I think one of your strengths as a manager is surrounding yourself with strong talent. I've worked with managers who are reluctant to do that, and I think it speaks to your strength as a manager. You tend to try to surround yourself with top-notch talent, and when I looked at the resume, I was very impressed. So I think this will be a fairly straightforward decision or recommendation on our part, but I want to commend you for somehow, you know, your approach to this. And like I said, she's terrific.
Thanks, and we'll have her here August 12th. So I was hoping we could bring her in, have you meet her, and as I say, you'll love her. And so that's moving forward. Now, the other one that...
And Bob, I have to run. I'm so sorry. I have a dog issue. So.
I hope she's okay.
She is, but my babysitter has a problem and I need to.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Oh,
I get those calls. And
may it be minor when you get there.
I'll give her a kiss for you. I'm sorry, you guys.
so that's 2 of the big 3, and my third one is the community development director. Now, we're halfway through the interviews there. We've got another interview tomorrow, another interview Thursday, and from that group, I hope to be able to select 3 candidates. Now, this one's a little different where it falls in the charter. It's kind of interesting. 3 big slots, 3 different provisions of the charter. The first one is the 21-day period. The second one for library, that's going to be, you'll get a letter and there'll be a 15-day. So we got to hold the letter up again so you can make sure on the 12th that you'll be within your 15-day period. And the third one is the community development, which represents a department head, in which case I recommend to this board 3 finalist candidates. And I'm confident that we'll be able to do that.
What's the department head, Bob?
Community development. And we've had some good people. We didn't have 45 applicants. Community development's a little bit more specialized, but we have some good applicants, and I've got at least 2 that I'd be confident in recommending, and I'm hoping by the time we get through the next 2 interviews that I have 3 that I would feel comfortable in recommending. And so I think we're going to be fine there as well, and that's moving forward. And I also have a nice panel on that, and I tried to tap, since we were doing them sort of the same time frame, I told Jeff Colby and Jennifer Mullen to stick around. They good people. They did a great job. But I also pulled in Mark Grills, who's another. He's kind of a sleeper. That guy, he's very busy, but I'll tell you, if somebody who is good with people, he's just empathic. You know what I mean? He comes across sometimes like tongue in cheek on certain things or rambunctious, but he is a good thinker, and he's been what a help on our process, and someone who can read people. Just look at you, ask you a couple of questions. He's been great. So at any rate, to involve some of these department heads in the major recruitments, it's been a treat for me. And it's funny, at the end of the day, we're usually unanimous. It's like magic how that works. But so I just wanted to let you know, I know these are some big slots, but
What are we still working on? We're still working on, is it health?
yeah, now health's interesting. We have an acting health director who's a candidate for the position. And there's been a couple of rounds of interviews and a couple of job offers, some recommendations that we got. That one falls under the building department, and a couple of these high-powered candidates that have declined our offers. Maybe they were just trying to get more money in other areas.
Yeah, we know that game.
The old fishing, yeah.
But I want to tell you, I feel like right now, with the acting, I think we're in a pretty good position, and I'm almost, our acting director, and I don't want to talk about him publicly, but we also interviewed him for the assistant town administrator slot, and he's a very smart guy, a lot of education, needs a little more seasoning and experience, and I honestly, I'd like to see him be the acting health agent for a little while longer, and I'm sort of rooting for him to, take that job, and so that needs a little more help. Now, the economic development piece I want to talk about, because there's a position that we need desperately that we reserve for economic development, and then we upgraded it a little bit. But honestly, I want to get the community development director seated. And I want to get a community development director that's got a little bit of savvy with working with the business community. I think that's critical, when we're dealing with that. And then I want to evaluate that economic development position and work with the staff in there. And I have a vision that, it may very well be with a little bit of reorganization in that department. For example, the possibility of looking at, instead of just hiring someone who is nothing but economic development, maybe an assistant town planner slot that has economic development responsibilities, but a planning background could fit in that role, and maybe provide some more assistance to, we have an awesome town planner, and hopefully with a great, well-rounded director. We need to fit that position in, but I think it has to wait till we get the director. And the only other one that I'm working with, my team and Pam and Sarah, they're ready to start interviewing on the licensing position. That's important to us. It's not the biggest position in town hall, but it's very important to us, and we need to get a good person in there. And I just want to say that we have a couple of candidates that I think are going to be a breath of fresh air, and so I'm looking forward to that. And I was just talking today about it. Push into, let's get these interviews, let's get that position filled. And so after that, I think we're in good shape.
Pam does such an amazing job stepping in every time.
Yeah, I gotta pull her out because she's embroiled in it and she's doing so great, but she needs the backup.
But thank God for her, because the continuity is just so extremely important.
Yeah, and Pam understands, you know, a lot of the things in a new person. Her experience
Takes years.
really is something that you can't underestimate the importance of. And I know, because you've been dealing with this licensing thing, and I've been dealing with licensing for a long time. I talked to Pam, and let me tell you something. She gets it. She understands a lot of the nuances that people like just don't get. So, yeah,
I'm grateful for her.
that's the only reason that we're keeping going with that is because
Why don't you
She's
just
great with
mention,
appointments,
when you
too.
talk about experience, how long has Pam been with us?
oh yeah, Pam is I think almost our longest standing town employee. She's like
think.
gonna be soon, and amazing. These are the years when people work 30 years for the same town, and she's great. And she's great. And Mary Alice is great too. She hasn't had as much experience in the select office, but in the Board of Health, and so we're pretty lucky in there. Like I say, the only problem is none of us are spring chickens anymore. So hopefully we'll get more and more young people in as we hire, you know, with these jobs. And
Well, sounds good.
okay, so I just wanted to. We talked about the goal setting.
Excited. He gets excited about
I do. I
Yeah.
want to come.
I'm surprised he can contain the excitement as long as he is. You know, it's 9:45, but
All right, let's get done with this. I just want to make sure everybody knows, you know, thank you very much. I thought that was an awesome goal-setting process, and I'm writing up the results right now. I want to review those with the board, get some, you know, approval on the framework of it, and I'm looking forward to jumping right in with the departments. There's a lot of things we're working on now, so thank you for that. And we need that so tremendously, and the departments are looking for that, and that's what we bring, this continuity, and I thought you guys were great with our team tonight, too, so thank you very much for that. One Cape, it is September 16 and 17, and that's the Cape Cod Commission's big conference of all of the Cape Cod issues. So if you want to go, let us know. Just drop a quick note over to Mary Alice, and what we'd like to do, we'll register you all, get you ready for it. So let us know. Liz has indicated weeks before the registration was even open, so she's ready to roll. But we want to hear from the rest of the board. And
can I just add a footnote to that? The Cape and Islands Municipal Leaders Association is having a breakfast on Wednesday, and on Wednesday of the conference.
yes,
So it's the 16th and the 17th. So that Wednesday morning, there'll be a breakfast at around 7:30. And the featured discussion will be to delve into wastewater and wastewater funding. I'm the president of the group now, and I'm making wastewater our top issue, wastewater and wastewater funding. So,
Great.
yeah, so what we're doing is, as you know, you were polled by the commission staff on our long-term plans and looking at, if we were to sort of put together a budget, looking at the future phases
All right, don't
headed
get
forward.
too excited right now about this, but
Okay.
it's almost 10.
No, but I just wanted to say,
Send out for pizza.
I just wanted to say that, no, we want to basically, we're aggregating all of the capital costs for wastewater for all of the towns. So we'll have updated information on what our needs are going forward, and I expect it to be quite significant, and obviously Yarmouth's numbers will be in there as well.
Great. And just finally, Friday, I'm going on vacation. I'm not going too far. I'm going to be over on Martha's Vineyard, so I'll still be in phone service. And I am designating Jennifer Mullen, our finance director, to be an acting town administrator. And it's great for her. You know, she's done that before. When we brought her in, one of the reasons was because she is so experienced in a lot of these areas. And, you know, I felt, and Tracy and I talked about this a little bit, with, you know, the assistant town administrator slot out and things just moving so fast. It'd be great to have somebody in the building that was
Are you going to
acting.
broadcast that and make that widely known to
Yeah,
everybody?
I'm going to tell everybody. I wanted to tell the board first, and then we're going to make sure all the staff knows. And so she's capable of taking care of anything, although once when she was the acting town manager in Chatham, it was when the sharks invaded the harbor, and I don't think that went well, but she's promised me we weren't going to do that this year. And
We're not going to do the Sharks this year, okay?
and I'll be around on phone if you need me or you want to call me or anything. So
Enjoy your time.
I hope you have a great vacation.
Yeah,
I'll
enjoy.
take a motion to adjourn.
Happy
That's all I
fishing.
have.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you very much. Thank you. I thought we were gonna be early when we.